All right, hello everyone. So, welcome to the 12th Celebrity Typing live stream. If you haven't seen these live streams before, the rules are that you make a super chat of at least 20 American dollars. I will then do a typing of whomever you suggest, as long as they are a relatively public person that I can find information about in order to type. So yes, if you'd like me to look at someone this evening, please send a super chat of at least $20 and I will then type that person. So I see we already have one person. That is Chris Claremont, kindly suggested by Isaac. Thank you, Isaac. Let's go to Chris Claremont. So yes, another American comic book writer, which is usually Isaac's suggestions. So let's see. He worked for 16 years on Uncanny X-Men, longer than any other writer. Credited with developing strong female characters, was introducing complex literary themes into superhero narratives, and was underachieving comics to one of Marvel's most popular series. Hmm. By that, the Uncanny X-Men is particularly issues focused. There's quite a bit about oppression, prejudice. It goes quite a bit into X-Men. It's an ongoing theme. Oh, of course, Claremont is Jewish on his mother's side, but that probably explains also the theme of oppression and prejudice being a consistent theme in his comic book creation, I guess. Hmm. So yes, lived a kibbutz in Israel during his youth. Raised primarily on Long Island. He was more interested reading Dan Dare than the Batman and Superman comics. Why is that? So why did he like Dan Dare more than Batman and Superman? Let's see. Hmm. It's interesting. There aren't really any yeah, so there aren't really superheroes in this. It's not about superpowers. We find that more interesting than Batman and Superman. Well, hmm. Okay. It's interesting. Let's see what else we can say about him. Hmm. So initially, he was actually not interested in comics. He thought it had a dwindling readership. He did so. He began at Bard College as a political theorist, studying acting and political theory, writing novels. It also explains the issues focus for X-Men. Interesting. Interest new supporting characters such as Moira McTaggart and Lilandra Neramani, Jean Grey, also known as Marvel Girl, one of Marvel's first female heroes, with a dramatic transformation to an extremely powerful Phoenix. Um, okay. He wrote the Dark Phoenix saga. That's a good one. Days of Future Past. Fascinating. So it's a landmark in Marvel history. He diversified his comic work from 1992 and from other publishers. Hmm. Wrote regularly with Fantastic Four. Writing star, here we go. So his complex story structures played a pivotal role in assembling the audience that enabled American comics to move to a more mature and sophisticated storytelling and the graphic novel. Claremont's editor on the series, Louis Simonson, attributes the X-Men's success to his approach to the characters. Chris took them very seriously. They were real people to him. As the writer of X-Men, he became known for certain characteristic phrases, such as Wolverine saying, "I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do is very nice." became closely associated with the character. He was the soapiest writer in comic books. The classic Claremont pose is either a character, head hung in shame with two enormous rivers of tears running down the cheeks as he or her delivers a self-loathing monologue, or a character with head thrown back and mouth open in a shout of rage, shaking tiny fists at heaven and vowing that the whole world will soon learn about his or her feelings. The genius of Chris Claremont was that he made mutants a generic stand-in for all minorities. He referred to himself as an immigrant, describing his affinity with outsiders after arriving in the United States from England. He was beaten up because he looked like a geek. His emphasis on the theme of prejudice resonated with readers as the X-Men series rose in popularity. Okay. It's interesting that sort of slightly hyper-dramatic. That's interesting. Um, all right. Let's see what else we can find. I'm wondering already if it'd be interesting in something like Dan Dare over Superman and Batman, this sort of maturation, as it were, of comic book writing and drawing it more towards certain issues based on his own, sort of very loosely connected to his own personal experiences. I'm wondering if there's introverted ethics there. We'll have to see, of course. Could be an introverted ethics lead, maybe. But I don't know right now. Let's see him in an interview. Oh, an in-depth conversation. Okay, let's skip this. Skip.
No one's ever come and an inspiration to many. Please join me in welcoming the uncanny Chris Claremont to everybody. Yay!
Just be a
Please.
Trifle picky. It's 7.8 million.
How dare I? How dare I? 7.8. 7.8. I stand corrected. First of all, thank you for being here. It is an honor as a longtime comic book fan, as an X-Men fan. I mean, the fact that we get to sit here and have this talk and just kind of geek out about the industry and everything, it means the world to me. So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
The honor and the pleasure is mine.
Awesome. We're gonna start off with like we do with every interview. Hit us with, and I know because we've talked in the past about this, but I want the people at home to know this. What is your military connection?
Complicated? Well, there was this big war a long, long time ago in the continent, not so far away. And living in the UK, my uncle was in the RAF, my father was in medical school, RAF medical school, and my mom got stood up on a date one evening, and she was walking home and she saw this beautiful, beautiful photograph, painting almost, of a Spitfire just roaring up through the sky. And her instant reaction was, I want to fly that plane. So she went into the recruiting office, and the recruiter quietly waited until she had signed the she'd signed up before telling her that girls were not allowed to fly. But since my mother was a university graduate, she could run a radar station or be in a radar station. So she spent the next couple of years on the South Coast on a radar station. As I find myself saying it, not to make people upset, greeting day visitors from across the channel. But
quite sort of wry and
visitors. Litter all over the place.
Sort of
so they
understated.
Help call up the local, shall we say, constabulary to fly up and remonstrate with them. And this went on for a while. after the war, my father graduated medical school, and you know, my uncle was severely wounded. He recovered, but everybody, you know, put in their bit. And then we came over here on what we thought was a visit because we had family over here. And the next thing we knew, my father had signed up for the army. This was post-Korea, and doctors were seriously needed. And the next thing we knew, he was an officer in the Army Medical Corps, and he served 4 years.
Yeah, understated, not
Most of it
performative, really, at all.
Fitzsimmons Army Hospital in Denver. And to get his citizenship, the old-fashioned way, you know, did your duty. And
Yeah, I can skip a bit.
wasn't doing it. Book writers do. You craft.
Here we go.
Up on you and understanding your, you know, your history.
All lies.
Oh, the internet is full of lies. It's so good. But no, you know, I love the idea that that you had this passion for, you know, theater and acting, and how a lot of people speculate that, you know, the focus on you know, character driven, right? As an actor, what's my motivation? What's my what's my character thinking? Why is he doing? Really went well for your work in the comic books, in that, you know, you gave these characters real depth.
Well, that's what writers do. You craft people, and then the story evolves out of the people. I mean, who would have paid any attention to Harry Potter if Harry was a dunce? You know, the key is.
I suggest potentially introverted ethics again.
I mean, you care about the story because you care about the people in the story. You turn on a TV show or go to the movie, when we used to go to movies, because you're interested in the people. You have to craft characters that the audience will bond with and grow the story itself out of them. Otherwise, why will anyone care? And if they don't care, why would they spend the money and go to the cinema and sit there for 2.5 hours?
He speaks almost like he's answering trifling questions.
It's falling in love with those who are on the screen. If you don't fall in love with them, if you don't fall in love with
No sort of
characters on the TV
social
show,
adaptation to the interview.
What's the point? You turn the channel until you find someone you do bond with.
Exactly.
And the key thing that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did with the Marvel Pantheon is that they created. Jack created characters in the Fantastic Four, and Doctor Doom, and whomever, that you would look at and go, huh, those are really interesting. But then Stan would give them a voice and a life that made you want to turn the page and see what happens next. Because comics, American comics, are a period piece. You get to the 20th page, and it's like, what the heck happens next? And you have to wait 30 days until the next issue comes out. And you want to be the first in queue at the comic book store or at the newsagent to get that issue and find out. And that's what always, for me, that's what made the X-Men so much fun. And especially in the first 100 issues, I had the great good fortune of being teamed up with Dave Cockrum, who created the modern X-Men as we visually created the modern X-Men.
See if I can watch maybe there's some sort of documentary on him. Hmm. Interesting. Why did it get? Why was he in hot water?
Marvel and X-Men comic book legend Chris Claremont did a spotlight panel at C2E2 this weekend, and it sounds like it didn't go all that well. I guess people were kind of waiting on him, and then when he did show up, it sounds like he was a bit tired and had a big case of the "I don't give a fucks."
I'm getting that sense.
But I don't think he cares. Just judging from the information that we do have and here talking about that is X-Men super fan Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I'm great, man, and uncancelable Chris Claremont, because this man does not give any shits.
Yes.
And we're about to find out if he's uncancelable.
I'm getting that sense.
Well, the thing is, I'm pretty sure his contract's pretty ironclad. I know we'll talk about that later. The people that love him are still going to love him.
Okay, well, let's get into this. This is basically taken from the comics.
I wonder if he could be.
Of the panel itself.
If he could be EII.
So I'm going off what they had to say, and not surprising, they were a little bit more offended than most people. The first thing I think that might get him in trouble, he ends up talking about Thor: Love and Thunder, and according to Comics XF, he was complaining about the movie. Not surprising, I think a lot of people complained about
Why is he complaining?
And he ended up saying Tessa Thompson, who plays Valkyrie, should go back and make another Men in Black. Sorry, Persons in Black movie. I think he might get in a little bit of trouble for that.
Oops.
It's a meta joke about the whole X-Persons, mutants, X-Men, and his X-Men having, mostly women in it, but it was still called X-Men.
Yeah, I think he was making fun of current society.
So I'm
and men.
Yes, exactly. He's absolutely making fun of that, but I'm waiting for all of the super offended people to think it's a black joke.
Yeah, that's where he's going to get in trouble. That's
but look, you can't worry about getting in trouble from fucking morons.
Right. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. What made him leave X-Men comic books? Right.
This perch. One of the questions I get asked a lot is whatever happened to Chris Claremont on the X-Men? Why did he leave the X-Men? He had a very long and celebrated run. I think he was Marvel's writer golden child, although Marvel in that era didn't necessarily think about it in the same way they do today. He was definitely one of kind of their big guys, but writers were not celebrated like they are now. At least they're not this omnipresent force that we see today. In most cases, the artist was probably more the front billing, and that may play in a little bit. But the interesting thing about Claremont and the X-Men is that the story of what kind of went down has changed and morphed and evolved over time. And a lot of people have come in and said, here's the real story. And Claremont has given many interviews where he talks, little bits, but you kind of have to piece all the parts together. And I think the key here is nothing is super dramatic, but there are a few pieces there. So where this all begins, I think, for Claremont is that, most stories center around one individual being probably the core driving reason. And that was the X-Titles group editor, Bob Harris. Now, Bob Harris, of course, went on to take a more senior position at Marvel, and then he was fired, and then he went to Wildstorm and ultimately DC, and he was recently part of the layoffs there. But how did Bob Harris kind of play into all this? Well, again, we're reading a little bit between the lines of a lot of interviews and things that have taken place, but one of the things that Claremont has kind of consistently talked up or said was positive for him was Anna Cinti and her reign as the editor and how wonderful she was. And there's often this kind of over the top, well, not over the top, there's a lot of praise that goes to Nacinti's direction that then abruptly stops when you get to Harris. So to kind of get into a little bit of what was going on with Marvel and titles and what ultimately led to Claremont's departure is to take a look at what was going on with Marvel at the time. And this is there was this huge kind of late 80s, but definitely like 1990, 1991, suddenly a lot of attention and a lot of focus from the customers was toward the artists, and in particular, people like Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee, Tom
Yep.
McFarlane, Mark Silvestri, also Pataccio. Uh, they were the big names. They were the people that were bringing the titles, and Marvel was happily riding that wave. And there started to be this behavior within Marvel of you let those artists do whatever they want. You basically you don't want to ruffle any feathers. They are cash cow at the moment, which is not altogether wrong. In fact, there's a lot of truth to that. Those titles were selling really, really well, and it was on the backs of the hard work of those artists that was going on there. And I mean, in particular, Tom McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Rob Liefeld were huge heavyweights in this business. And of course, Jim Lee was over there on X-Men along with Weiss Portacio, and they were basically doing the two books.
Mm.
So what was starting to happen with them is that they and keep in mind the other pieces is money. Those artists are their work is rapidly getting licensed to T-shirts and to posters and everything else. So there's out more John Byrne type person, Todd McFarlane wanting to do his own book. You had Jim Lee make the request to have more input in the plot because he wanted to do certain pieces. And this is the point in the story where you hear a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ideas over kind of who's right, who's wrong, and what all was asked for or wasn't asked for. What we do know is more was asked for. And Claremont was basically seemed happy to work with Jim Lee. And here's where I want to throw in this. A lot of people have speculated or done videos or done posts saying that there was a deep rift that grew between Jim Lee and Claremont, and Claremont hated him and all the rest. But that doesn't wash. And I say that because in subsequent interviews through the years, Claremont's always been very gracious, I would say, to Jim Lee. He's always complimented him. And Jim Lee and Claremont worked together on a Wildstorm book for a period of time. And why in the world would Claremont go and do work with Jim Lee, on his own accord down the road if there's this deep animosity? So I don't believe that holds up at all. A lot of people have made a lot of noise about that and kind of played up the drama there, but it doesn't wash. It just doesn't make any sense. But what does fit is the Harris connection. So as Claremont would at times, and we've heard this from interviews too, he'd receive pages and he didn't know what was going on. And this was a definite change from how it had worked through his career. And Claremont, who tended to be a very, I would say, intricate writer who liked to kind of style things a certain way and have a certain pace. And he just liked his comics to be a certain way. And he'd been successful that way for all that time. He was unhappy. And so Claremont complained, and this is on the record, he complained to Harris about the tardiness of both Lee and others, and that they need to do something to fix the problem. Now, from what all accounts are, it wasn't, hey, you need to get Jim Lee off the book. It was that we need to do things differently. We need to maybe have a more steady artist on one of the books, or just basically change that up. And here's where the rub seems to occur. It's at least stated that Claremont was made a bunch of promises. We'll fix this problem for sure. We will do things. But instead, kind of the opposite happened. Nothing really changed. Harris did give Lee complete veto power over new plot lines. But what's weird is you talk to Jim Lee later, and Jim Lee said he never asked for that in the first place. So it really felt like a lot of differy on the part of Harris toward Claremont.
Claremont didn't have his own creative control.
I think it definitely made Claremont feel he was being disrespected on a title he'd been on for 20 odd years or so. And Harris reportedly stopped answering mail and just kind of stopped talking to him. And so Chris Claremont took himself out. He left the X titles early on in the new X-Men relaunch. They brought in John Byrne, who lasted even less time. just kind of came, decided nope, and left. And then of course the punchline to all this is that it was and by the way, there's a story there kind of relating to Byrne, and that Byrne came in, saw this complete mess going on, complained about style, complained about the lateness of the artist, and was
he didn't like things happening later than he wanted them.
And they never sent burn any more pages at that point. They just kind of ghosted him. And so just
Probably an
really
exacting
kind of
type, not
appreciate
a
and
determined
then, of
type,
course, as I said, the
from the
punchline of
sound of
all
it.
this is that about a year later or less, the image artists, formed Image, and they all bailed. So all of the bending over backwards that Harris did to kind of keep these guys happy didn't work. And if you listen to Rob Liefeld's podcast and kind of other interviews at the time, the interesting piece and why this gets to be a slightly complicated story is that it sounds like the image artists weren't necessarily asking for or particularly wanted some of the things that Harris was doing for them.
Right.
If anything, that seems
let's move off topic. Okay, so it's interesting. Talking about him being a method actor, so he approached the job as a method actor, developing the character was their motives, desires, and individual personalities. As opposed to immediate positive reaction. He lived it and breathed it. He would write whole paragraphs about what people were wearing. He really got into these people's thoughts, hopes, dreams. I think what's taken the series has been likened to writing a great American novel about complex characters who just happened to fly, incorporating surprise character developments and emotional nuances amid the operatic battles otherwise typified American superhero comics. By his own admission, Claremont acquired a reputation for taking a long time to resolve plot threads, and longtime X-Men editor Louise Simonson recounted that whenever she was at a loss for story ideas, all I'd have to do was go through all the plot threads that he had left for the last year or two. Okay, so intricate, creates a lot of complexity, doesn't necessarily tie everything up, but spends a long time going really, really deep into character and fleshing that out, and does not really seem to care at all how he's perceived by the general public, and doesn't really socially adapt much either. So these are all reasons why I'm thinking EII might make the most sense at this early point in time. Let's see what else. And it's interesting that he's focused a lot on creating very female X-Men characters. There's a sense there of sort of, well, portraying the less viewed perspective, I guess. He's a sopious writer. Professor Claremont Poe's other character, Hedgehog, but he's not an artist. He's a writer. So I don't know, maybe that's how the artists have then portrayed his writing. Hmm. See what else we can find on him. Thanks, Claudia. Yeah, I'll do Kit Marlowe. Once we finish with Chris. What else is there on him? He excelled at the task of writing good team arcs in which every member of the ensemble cast of X-Men had his or her moment to shine. He was lauded for writing action-packed stories with strong characters, both heroes and villains, mixing it with soap opera elements and always bringing in the social undercurrent of mutants being a harassed minority. With strong female characters, but we've talked about that already. Most common criticism is his overly descriptive writing style. His characters spoken in long paragraphs, often called forced or unrealistic. He has frequently employed third-person omniscient narration to describe events that might easily be conveyed in the art, and to some, unneeded thought bubbles to spell out character motivation and personality, especially during action scenes. I wonder if that's a certain lack of physicality in him could suggest being a more intuitive person. You can criticize what readers and critics have seen as his inability or unwillingness to bring plots to fruition. He also tended to revisit certain characters repeatedly of his career, such as Captain Britain and Rogue. So an inability to bring things to bring plots to fruition, perhaps a certain analysis paralysis, maybe? I wonder. Hmm. He's a good plotter, but a terrible scripter. His novel-length text bubbles choke pages of great art. Should become more pronounced. He's, that's the thing. He's almost less of a natural, um, less of a natural comic writer than almost a prose writer, or book writer. Hmm. Right. See what else there is here. Frequent use of doppelgangers. Especially themes, melodramatic styles, writing, particularly in the 80s, known for being highly verbose with extensive, wordy inner monologue boxes. Formulaic character beats, some felt stuck in repetitive emotional cycles or experienced a sense of redundancy in their narratives. I think that maybe the intricacy, the lack of sort of pushing things forward sometimes, making sure everyone had their own moment to shine. So very much giving everyone a chance to actually be seen and understood and diving deep into the characters, but then perhaps then compromising on the delivery and the payoff as a result. I think that also could point to an EII, to be fair. Let's see this. Because he was a keeping running plot lines, there were always a few real head scratchers mixed in. Anything involving the siege perilous. He has virtually no subtlety in his characterization. When he's mad, he tries to kill someone. If Storm has doubts about her ability to be a role model for Kitty, just makes Stevie Hunter to personify that. There's a pretension, a pretentiousness. Intense stubbornness is one thing often held back his books. He gets so stuck on bad ideas, to listening to others and just abandoning them. Hmm. Right. Let's see some quotes. Foreign ticket sales over twice domestic returns. My boggles at those kinds of numbers. That's what you get when you effectively reach out to a global audience. If that kind of thing came to comics, it would undoubtedly change how people perceive the mainstream industry. Hmm. All good communal storytelling comes from the sagas and arguments within the writer's room. Hmm. Every writer with half a brain knows how to surround himself or herself with editors who are smarter, far more articulate, and infinitely better looking. I seem to contradict what was just said on Reddit there, but you know. If you Magneto, he's a terrorist who might someday evolve into a statesman. Hmm. So why do you want to become an actor? Let me see why I want to become an actor in the first place. So where did he go into acting? Okay. Theatre and crew there. No. It doesn't actually explain why I became an actor. It's not explained. Right, I'm going to see some more interviews in him. See this.
And then John Byrne, who took Dave's what Dave.
I think I see him in the panel. Maybe it's for the 2022 one when he got some criticism. See this.
Hardcore comic fans say things on Twitter that are insane and prove that they don't read comics or pay attention to anything at all. Well, this week we have C2E2 over in Chicago. It's a comic convention. There are a lot of guests there. And one of those guests is Chris Claremont. Now, if you met Chris Claremont, and I had a chance to talk to Chris Claremont for like a half an hour about a year ago in Puyallup, Washington, back when I lived in a place that wasn't 106 degrees all the time. One thing about Chris Claremont, anyone who knows comics and will tell you, is that Chris Claremont has a high, degree of sarcasm. Tends to have a sense of humor that is kind of bitingly cold and sometimes, dry and or odd. He's also a very gifted writer. Regardless of what you think about comics, he did deliver some of the highest selling, most popular comics that have maintained their popularity to this day. And when you get him talking about things, he will frequently leave you wondering: is he crazy? Is he drunk? Or is he telling jokes? And the answer is he's telling jokes. So there's somebody.
I'm pretty sure he's either extrovert ethics vulnerable or ignoring.
Journalists on Bleeding Cool was talking about how
I'm leaning more.
David, he seemed kind of grouchy, and I'm like, oh, okay.
He does seem grouchy.
Yes, that's true. Anyway, so Chris Claremont was on this panel, and he Comics XF, which I might add at this point, does believe this channel is a all-out hate channel, disparaging against everyone. One of the worst places to possibly be. This was after I mentioned in a video that calling out Brett Booth, which they were doing at the time and refusing to review his comics, even though they were calling themselves, X-Men authority, was childish and the very definition of toxic fandom. But if you criticize these people for their hypocritical, dumbass takes, then you're a hate channel. So welcome to this one. Anyway, Comics XF is covering this panel because it's an X-Men panel, and you can watch them kind of melt down in real time as they're doing it. First off, the panel was supposed to have Art Adams, was supposed to be on the panel as well. Claremont Adams on a panel would be pretty badass. But at any rate, Comics XF immediately decides to start throwing shade on the panel. Claremont is late. Again, paging anyone who has followed comics in the last 20 years. Yeah, he's going to be late. That's why, proper conventions will make sure that they kind of arrange it in such a way they can kind of escort him over there so they don't just, expect him to wander in on time. By the way, that applies to all kinds of people.
from new creators like Donny Cates or Tom King. I mean, Cates, it's a coin flip whether he's going to show up at all to some things. And no, before you say that's a mean take, there have been several conventions that he ducked out of at the last possible minute, and definitely some of those convention organizers kind of pissed. If you think that's throwing shade at Donny Cates, take it up with some of the con organizers, most recently at the Dallas Comic Con, who were not amused. But anyway, so Comics XF immediately starts talking about, people have the host is asking if people have read anything Claremont that isn't X-Men, crickets, and then talking about Chris is late, and this is hella uncomfortable. And then there's kind of more, where is he? Oh my God. This goes on for like 20 minutes or so. And then Chris Claremont comes, and then Chris Claremont does Chris Claremont things. This is so here's some of the kind of highlights that you will be hearing about already, because what I'm about to tell you, if you go all over Twitter, people are absolutely ready to cancel him and send him out of comics forever for the comments he's about to give, which are in some cases some of the same jokes he's been telling for 20 years. But hey, it turns out people do not pay attention. What I was kind of surprised by is shitster comic tropes, who really whatever. But he's like, ooh, he's saying a lot of very problematic things. His appearance seems to be going poorly. I've got to parse, what's going on here. So he's saying very inflammatory things. Again, nothing reveals that comic tropes is a phony than coming on and saying Chris Claremont is saying phony things or inflammatory things based on what he's saying, because this is Chris Claremont, dummy. This is the kind of stuff he says. And you could say it's inflammatory or not, but if you're going, oh my God, I can't believe what was said here, you clearly have not been following this guy. So don't call yourself a comic authority on anything. Sorry, it has to be said. Anyway, here's the kind of stuff he talked about. He called, it's kind of the highlights of the anger. He called Karma's arc the ultimate weight loss program, Enchanted Evil Flesh. This is when Magma was being, and talked about her being just kind of dumb. This was during the Asgard War, a two-parter that he did with Art Adams. He said they wanted to do a sequel to the X-Men Alpha Flight whole thing, and there wasn't room in the publishing line, which makes me die slightly inside. And Doug found out it's not good to be a slave in Asgard. This is being interpreted that he's advocating for slavery other places. Anyway, he talked about.
It was shocked that he's a petty curmudgeon.
Keeps him working
I mean, that makes that can fit for a grumpy EII.
And then started bragging about his sales, which for whatever reason people are upset about. Now, I thought this was a comic industry where everything was wonderful and perfect, and it's bigger than ever. So Claremont talking about how he helped.
I see this interview. It's an older one.
X-Men writer for all of my childhood, and that main title, I think this is what everybody knows Chris Claremont from, what they think of when they think of Chris Claremont. And this is basically just part of that Marvel press push of promoting more X books, relaunched X books, and obviously building on the momentum of having an 8 million copy selling X. Focusing on in a very detailed manner where the writers and editors.
Don't think that's necessarily what I'm looking for. Master of Marvel in that conversation. That's what we've seen already. Let's see you on the panel. That'd be interesting.
I'm really delighted by that story. I thought it worked out great for Loki. I thought it was funny for Balder. It was a good character bit for both for Balder and for Loki. And the reason that happened that way, really, because I talked to Chris Claremont in the office. I described the story that you'd heard up to the point where Balder cuts his head off. What I had originally was that Balder finally clocks Loki, pulls the sword out, and drives it down. But he ends up driving it down right into the floor next to his head, maybe clips his ear. Doesn't really cut his head off. And Chris said, "Oh man, I thought you were going to cut his head off." And I said, "Wow."
Sword of omens, come to my hand. I, Lionel, command it. Thundercat.
And start with one of the favorites of both Marvel and DC, the great Walter Simonson. his better half, Jacqueline of all trades, if you will, fine editor, fine writer for both companies as well, Louise Simonson. And what can I say? A man that created so many of our favorite X-Men and X-Women, the great Chris Claremont. Now we want Walt to stay, but apparently he's got to get back to the table, and that's great because he's doing a lot of stuff. But I know he wanted to start with a Chris Claremont story.
I did. I have some folks to go back and do some sketches and signings for it. So I'm gonna let Weezy and Chris take the brunt.
This guy's quite a bit more of a performer than Chris is.
Was asked about giving Chris some props. He doesn't really need them from me, but I do have one story about him I want to pass on because it's something I don't give credit to him because it's really my credit, it's my book. But when I was one of the things in the old days when companies used to have offices and offices you could go into, and we all went into the offices in New York all the time, DC and Marvel. It's not so true now because of COVID. It changed the way business gets done in comics. But before that, there were offices for both companies. And if you worked for either one or the other, you took your work in before the days of scanning and computers. The work, physical work, the actual physical pages had to go to the office to turn into your editor so they could be copied, colored, printed, lettered. They were back and forth to inkers, back and forth to letterers, back and forth to pencilers, and so on. So it gave you a chance to be in the office and see people a lot. So all the people in my generation and the older generations before me are all people that I knew. I wasn't as friendly with some as with others, but I knew them all really well. And it was great. It was comics was next 5 years of X-Men continuity, as you talked for an hour. But to be perfectly fair, I would then give him the next 5 years of Thor continuity.
I'll go back to
because
what
we would go into the office and you'd bump into somebody like Chris, and Chris would give you the next 5 years of X-Men continuity as you talked for an hour. But to be perfectly fair, I would then give him the next 5 years of Thor continuity at the same rate. So we were talking once about one of the stories I was going to do. I was doing a story about Balder. For those of you who haven't read it, I put Balder through the ringer just because it was fun. And he got way overweight. He'd done some awful stuff. And eventually Odin asks him for a favor. And Odin wants him, Odin knows that bad stuff's coming. He wants Balder to go and talk to Loki to see if they can enlist Loki's aid. And Loki, of course, is pretty much on his own, doesn't care about anybody else. So Balder goes, makes the trip there. It's not an easy trip. He gets there. He explains to Loki how important this all is. And essentially, after listening to him, Loki blows him off. He blows him off as truly as possible. And finally, Balder loses it. And he pulls, by the way, this is a spoiler warning. If you have not read it, I know the comic's 30-some years, almost 40 years old now. So now I don't care. If you haven't read it, I'm sorry. Because I am going to tell you what happens. Balder finally freaks out, pulls out his sword, and cuts off Loki's head. And runs out of the building screaming, as it were, and rides off in the desert into self-imposed exile. Loki's headless body is standing there. The head is sitting on the ground. It fell neck down, which is a good thing. So it's just sitting there with the head up. And then after a moment, the body bends over and it picks up the head and it reattaches itself. After all, Loki is a sorcerer. This is his job. So I'm really delighted by that story. I thought it worked out great for Loki. I thought it was funny for Balder. It was a good character bit both for Balder and for Loki. And the reason that happened that way, really,
okay, what's that about
Chris Claremont in the office. I described the story that you'd heard up to the point where Balder cuts his head off. What I had originally was that Balder finally clocks Loki, pulls his sword out, and drives it down, but he ends up driving it down right into the floor next to his head, maybe clips his ear. Doesn't really cut his head off. And Chris said, "Oh man, I thought you already cut his head off." And I said, "Fuck." Probably in those exact words. I'm sorry, are there any kids here? I'm sorry. But so I just thought, all right, well, I'm terribly sorry. He's playing a video game, I'm good. So I rewrote my ending of my story. That's the way the story came out. if we did not have the offices back in the old days and the social interactions with all of us and talk to each other, editors as well as freelancers in the offices, that story would not have been as good as it was. So I want to thank Chris for giving me the idea. I have occasionally credited him once in a blue moon at conventions, but not very often because I want people to think I'm brilliant, not that Chris is brilliant. So thank you very much, Chris. That was my story.
Okay. What does Chris
Thanks,
say?
Walt Simonson, everybody. Another Marvel legend. Absolutely. Look at him.
For the time anyway, so
All right. No, you're like Bob Hope. Yeah.
A lot more of a performer.
Say hello.
Oh, I just had this Loki idea.
oh my god, the invisible phone.
Thanks, Walter. Outstanding, man. Honestly, I'm so glad that Mitch had the idea of having Louise and Chris together, and Walter as well, because that's what I like. I'm going to be a fly on the wall, just like all of us, and let them talk. I mean, that's, we want the stories, man. So that's great. Anyway, all right, I'm covering. See, they probably said something really interesting there, and I was covering for them. But no, it's really great to see both of you. And Louise, forgive me, because Chris, we're going to talk a lot of X-Men. And everybody, truly,
Of course, he had nothing to do with X.
no, God forbid. Well, but wait, I'm going to bring up something that is pre-X-Men in a second. But if you have questions of anything that either Louise or Chris have done, please line up, use the microphone.
Mostly Chris.
Yeah, because we want to hear you on the video and the audio as well. But Chris, I will start with you and ask, prior to X-Men, my first exposure to you was in the 70s, and it was Iron Fist and Power Man, right?
No, Iron Fist all by itself.
Iron Fist all by itself, excuse me. Regardless, and I'm more of I'll admit I love Danny Rand. I'm a huge fan.
Well, Archie's Ratchet, both Iron Fist and Power Man were canceled, but Archie figured
A bit
that
particular as well.
God forbid they have the same audience, so to combine Archie Goodwin, the editor-in-chief,
Right.
Basically, let's combine Iron Fist and Power Man. That way, we'll basically garner together enough readers to keep the books alive. And Chris said, I don't know anything at all about black people. I'm English. I really am English, accent notwithstanding. How can we do this? And Archie looks at me and said, if you cannot make at least one, if you can't get stories going by the interaction of Danny Rand, Luke Cage, Misty Knight, and Colleen Wing just coming in the morning to have breakfast, you're not a writer. Get the hell out of these offices.
But this,
and Archie was right, and Joe Duffy had a successful writing career out of it.
So amount of self-doubt there.
well, honestly, putting them together even if it was only for sales, was brilliant. As Carl Douglas himself sang in the early 70s, everybody was kung fu fighting, and you didn't have to just be like the great Bruce Lee. And really,
People who just tuned in. I'm trying to type Chris Claremont. I got an idea. I'm just not confident enough in that idea yet.
Thing was, Power Man was a really good TV series.
Yeah.
Iron Fist,
Oh well.
not quite so much.
Yeah. Oh well. I know. I was a little underwhelmed as well. I'll be honest. It's a shame. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's
So I do
He's
know
very
that
sincere.
Giant Size X-Men started with Len Wein, and I know you were. And again, please correct me, Chris. Were you working under Len at that time? I mean, how did you get the gig after the initial reintroduction of the X-Men?
we're under Len.
Well, you know what I mean. I don't know what you mean.
Well, the interesting thing was, back in ancient history, when I first came to work for Marvel as a gopher. They're now called interns, but back then we were gophers and this is when the bullpen was John Romita Sr., Herb Trimpe, Marie Severin, and Frank Giacoya, 3 artists and an inker. And Marvel was not as substantial as it is today. And it was really, really cool. And Roy Thomas and Neil Adams were doing the Phoenix Saga. Were doing the Sentinels. And they were trying to figure out how to end the series, that arc. And
Yeah.
this is when I made a suggestion that, the theory is that all evolution is provoked by solar radiation. So if you're talking to the Sentinels logically, you would say you want to get rid of mutation, you obviously have to get rid of the sun. And so Neil ends up drawing this beautiful full-page splash of the sun and the Sentinels pouring into it. So I guess you could say that the spring of 1969 was my first contribution to the X-Men. So move ahead 5 years, 5.5 years, I'm associate editor at Marvel Comics, working for Len Wein as editor-in-chief. Len Wein and
Not a super detailed memory.
Giant Size X-Men #1, which was the idea of rebooting the team, and Stan's idea was that since rather than just bring the original 5, I put it white people, to get, meaning no disrespect to all you minority white people out here. No, Stan figured we want to try and sell this to international markets, so let's get some different people in. So suddenly we have, oh look, a Canadian. Yes, definitely. Not, an indigenous character, a Canadian, a German, an African. What's his face from Japan?
Sun, yeah, Sunfire.
But it wasn't mine, so the heck with it.
I'm gonna.
So we create all of them, and we're off and running. And at the end of Giant Size #1,
yeah, I can see why the woke crowd did not like that.
The obvious question: what are we going to do with 13 X-Men? Well, we'll find out next issue. But the punchline was Len couldn't figure out how to get rid of Krakoa. And I couldn't help myself because I've been sneaking into Len's office at that point for 2 months watching Dave Cockrum draw the book because it was beautiful.
Sure.
And so I said, well, all an island is a really big mountain. You've got 13 X-Men, for gosh sakes. Why don't you just give the mountain a buzz cut, and remove everything that's above the water and let the rotation of the Earth do the rest, neutralize gravity around it. And, you wait 5 minutes and he's already like 1,000 feet up, and oddly enough, islands can't grab for, help. So, that's what they did. They cut off the top of the island, and the Earth kept orbiting and spinning on its axis and orbiting around the sun, and it left him behind. And I thought, thank God we've got rid of that stupid island. We'll never see it again.
Whatever happened to Krakow?
Don't get me started.
God, Chris, how many stories did they reverse of yours? And we'll get to them later. Where, hey, guess what we're bringing back and reviving? But I don't mean to interrupt you, please.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, I know.
But anyways, the point, then Len decided after that experience he had enough of being editor-in-chief, and he was going to go freelance. And like all editors-in-chief going freelance, he got his pick of.
I'm going to see anything he has to say about Moira McTaggart. Not sure how to spell it, but that's not exactly how to spell it. No. No, it's with an A. There we go. No, it's with an E. Oh, what's this? This is an old interview. Wow. Okay. Oh.
I'm here with a very special guest, a writer whom I've known and admired for many, at least his work I've admired.
See how he was when he was a bit younger.
In fact, many people have admired his work. During the years that he's written the X-Men, he's made it one of the biggest selling comic books of all time. And that's for a long, long period of time. Of course, Chris Claremont has also written many other books, done many other things, but I guess he's best known for the work he's done on the X-Men. And now, without any further ado, I want you all to meet Chris Claremont.
Hi, Stan.
Glad to have you here, Chris.
My pleasure.
And first of all, I think the reason that we're doing this is because so many people have read your stories for such a long period of time, have been so impressed with them, and they'd like to know more about you. The thing about comics that's become so great is the fact that years ago, and when I say years ago, I mean decades ago, the artists and writers were pretty anonymous. But starting, I guess, in the 60s, when Marvel started putting the credits down for each writer and each artist and letter and inker, and the people who created comics began to accumulate fans. And the fans really do care. They care about the stories, they care about the artists, the writers, the editors. And as I say, we have one of the top writers in the comic book business here. So we want to really know a lot about you, more than just the stories you've written, Chris. So to begin with,
those chairs too high for them.
How did you get started as a comic book writer?
Well, foolishly, you hired me.
We all make mistakes.
I know. I was in college back in what seems like the dawn of time, but it was actually
Self-deprecation.
And every year, the college shut down for 2 months in January and February and send its students out on what they called a field period, which is that you were supposed to go out and get a job in your major field. And my major field at the time was acting and political theory, and there wasn't too much in the acting gig that winter in New York, and there was certainly not much in the political theory gig, especially if you weren't a Republican. So I figured I would get a job at Mad Magazine, since my parents knew an artist at Mad Magazine, Al Jaffe. And I thought, they go on all these great trips, and I really thought, go to Morocco or Egypt or Moscow, or, it'd be a lot of fun.
Their annual joint.
Yeah, I thought it would be a great idea. I mean, I'm 18. It would be fun. Unfortunately, we discovered that Mad doesn't have an office staff, and they really don't need a young punk flunky who's only along for the ride. However, Al said he knew this person at Marvel Comics, and would I be interested in going there and working for a couple of months? I said, hey, this is no problem. I like Marvel Comics. I love Marvel Comics. And that person turned out to be you. I'll call you. Next thing I know, I get a call from Saul Brodsky, who ran the Marvel offices at that time. And he said, would you like to work for us? You know, I understand you'd like to work for us on sort of like a gopher basis. Yeah, go for coffee, go for that. I said, sure. So, well, we can't pay you very much. We can't pay you at all.
We tell everybody that.
Yeah, well, little did I know. And I said, hey, no problem. I'll work for free.
Couldn't pass up a deal like that.
Well, it was this long silence, and I thought, oh, is anyone there? Oh, sorry, I wasn't used to someone being so forthcoming. And they said, you're hired. He said, I was hired. And I went in the next Monday, and there I was in a suit and a tie, and I wanted to look respectable, and my first day on the job, and I walk in the office, and Marvel in those days, as you recall, was not Marvel today. It was basically 3 closets on Madison Avenue.
One of them was my office.
It had the only door. And I walk in, and there's this little reception area with this incredibly awful, sort of dark green modular couch. This little coffee table.
You remember
Oh,
that?
yeah.
It was a million years ago.
Exactly. That's
Must have made some impression.
Oh, it was a great couch, you know. And a little cubicle, which was where, I guess the secretary sat, and then I ended up sitting. And then there was the bullpen, where at the time it was John Romita, Frank Giacoya, Herb Trimpe, and Marie Severin. And across the hall was the stat room, which in those days was Tony Mortallaro, and I think...
So you took issue with the aesthetic.
Actually, a photostat, visual aids.
They've since evolved into Xerox copies today, but before we had Xerox,
we made
had
photostats.
these big, cumbersome photostat machines that were the size of a room. But they were pretty good. You had nice glossy copies. Anyway, go ahead.
And well, the way basically you make a comic book is you have the original art, which is at this size, and you photostat it. Actually, it's shot down to the size of a printed comic book, and that's what the coloring is done on.
You mean you reduce the original size to what is it, 8x11?
Yeah, just about 8x11.
And then these glossy photostats, the colorers use what they call aniline dyes, and they color the photostat, and the colored photostat is sent to the engraver, who uses that as a color guide and makes whatever engravers make to color the book.
So I'm standing there, and then at the end of the hall were two offices, yours on the right, and Roy Thomas, who was assistant editor in those days, and Saul and the secretary on the left. So I'm standing there, and and suddenly this huge man, which was John Verporten, who was the production manager, comes lumbering down the hall, and it's sort of like a cross between King Kong and Godzilla. And I'm standing there, and it's like the scene in Kindergarten Cop, where I'm just sitting there going, "Hi, what do you want?" "Well, I'm here for a job." "We don't have jobs." No, I have an appointment." "Oh, you're the new kid." "Yeah, okay." And the next thing I knew, I was sitting at a desk and answering fan mail, and that was where it got started.
Did you answer the fan mail as well and as efficiently, carefully as we would have wanted? That was very.
No, I think I amazed everybody. I did it all, the entire 2 months backlog in one day, and I thought, my God, this kid is just too much to be. It's too good to be true. Let's keep him around for a couple of weeks. So
we were one company that our policy was always, as much as possible, to try to answer every fan mail. Always wanted these writers to get a reply from us, not just a form letter. And little did they dream they were getting a reply from Chris Claremont. Although knowing you probably signed your name.
No, actually, one of the things that happened was, one of the last things I did was I ended up rejecting the submission of a gentleman named Tony Isabella, who, when I came back to work full time for Marvel 5 years later, was my boss.
That's funny.
And he never tired of reminding me that I had rejected his first submission, and he could now fire me on a whim.
Well, how did you get to do writing? There you were answering fan mail. Was it because we liked the way you answered the mail so much?
No, actually,
I really know the answer. You see, I'm asking these things so you can tell people. I know.
So dry, understated humor.
Basically, it was you said at the time we did annuals, which were sort of like large format compilations in those days of the best of earlier issues of various series, plus fact pages about the characters, telling you a little more about who everybody was and what they are, and who, what, where, when, and why. In this instance, I was doing a Sergeant Fury. We were putting together a Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos annual, and they needed a couple of pages. Nazis I have known and loved, women I have killed, or maybe the other way around. Great tanks of World War II. And so I did the copy for it, and I got paid like $12 a page. And I thought, wow, this is fun. This is easy. Maybe I should try this more often. So when I went back to school, I started submitting plots, synopses. And I got.
When you went back to school, I mean,
to
that
college.
had been a temporary job.
Yeah.
And you went back to college.
Mhm.
So from college, you started sending us synopses.
Right.
Notice how I have this ability to clarify things and make them so cohesive. Go ahead.
Well, actually, that's a perfect exemplar of the writer-editor relationship. The writer comes up with all of these hopefully interesting concepts, and the editor reaches in and grabs out the one essential element, which is actually what it's all about. Went back to school. I finished.
That he's more of an idea generator rather than the one who selects and refines that down that much himself. I think there's another argument towards EII and against what seems to me to be the runner-up, which would be ILI.
Got out of college, went to work in New York as an actor for a while, and about the spring of 1974, Marv Wolfman, who was then editor of Marvel's Black and White line, needed an assistant. So I needed a job. They hired me for part-time, 2.5 days a week. And in that way that Marvel is so good at, the 2.5 days a week were the 2.5 days when nothing happened. No matter what 2.5 days, if it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, nothing happened. Sitting there at my desk, kind of goes, go, collecting a paycheck. And people would come by and say, Chris, don't you have anything to do? No. Want to give me something to do? We don't have anything for you to do. Then I won't do anything. So they thought, well, we could either fire the fool or make him full-time, on the assumption that sooner or later work will come in. They'll have to get their money, their value out. It's like if they fired me, they'd sacrifice the 5 weeks they'd already paid me.
That's
So they
real
figured
top-level thinking.
that's Marvel management. So they basically said, we'll make the full time.
We've never been known as great business people.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if I'd been fired, who knows where the industry would have been.
No, we weren't so dumb. We kept you. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I ended up working as Marv's assistant for the spring and summer. And then in August of '74, when I was out in California doing articles for Planet of the Apes, Roy Thomas retired as editor-in-chief. Len Wein took over, and I moved up the ladder to become his associate editor. So Len and I essentially put out the entire Color Comics line until Len left as editor-in-chief. Marv came in. And then in 1976, I had three meetings. Along the way, Len very kindly passed on to me the series that he had created with Dave Cockrum about a bunch of mutants, sort of like a restart of an old series that you and Jack had done that had not fared as successfully as everyone had hoped the first time out of the box. So he thought, well, let's give it another shot. And that's where the X-Men came from. And the rest, as they say, is a lot of fun.
And what year was that you started doing the X-Men?
Somewhere around the end of '74, beginning of '75.
I would say, wow.
Yes.
It seems to me that the one unique thing about the X-Men, or I should say about your version of the X-Men, it was one of the first times in comics that I could think of when the characterization became almost the most important part of the story, where I think what you succeeded in doing so beautifully, and I've always admired it, when Jack and I started the X-Men, there were only about 5 or 6 X-Men, and there were a few villains who were also mutants, and we played around with them. But you kept adding to the group until there were so many of these mutants that I don't even know. Everybody lost count. But you somehow gave each one of them a personality and a character that they became real fleshed out people, and the readers cared about them. And I used to think that some of your stories, even if there were no action scenes at all or fight scenes, they were incredibly gripping just because you had this ability to write real drama and real situations with characters that were fantastic powers, but you made them seem as realistic as any stories could be. And I think that that's really a great tribute to your ability.
Well, thank you very much.
How do you follow a remark like that?
Really? Well, actually, I'll see you and raise you a level, because in all I was really doing is following the path established by, as a writer, by you, in the sense that one of the most memorable issues of the Fantastic Four, which they actually just reprinted in the new Abrams book, The History of Marvel Comics, is This Man, This Monster. Which is not a punch-out book. It's an issue of the Fantastic Four where this guy takes the place of the Thing, one of the characters, believing that he will get his revenge on Reed Richards, for the head of the Fantastic Four, for some imagined slight. And in the course of the story, discovers that he was totally wrong about them, and that what he thought that his actions were not only based on a misconception, but were totally wrong. And in the end, ends up sacrificing himself to save Reed, because it's the only way in his own mind that he can balance the scales, because he has committed an unpardonable crime. There's no violence in it. No punch is thrown. Nothing. It's all character.
There isn't that much emphasis on action.
And it's a really
yes. I that's another point. I think he adds to characters. He adds diversity of characters, which suggests to me it's not the overwhelming focus on one character like Stalin. It's very much, it's about understanding different people and going deep on all those different people.
Whatever he or she does is probably based on something.
And there isn't much emphasis on that action for him. I think the problem was he was so much on trying to monologue the characters that it sort of choked up the action scenes, which I think makes quite a bit of sense. I think EII makes the most sense.
I get so interested in what you're saying that instead of thinking of the next question, I'm just listening to you. And then when you stop talking, suddenly I don't know what. And incidentally, I hope people don't think that when we sit and talk, normally we're always sitting at a table like this with our arms folded, this distance away. Sometimes we sit in chairs in a room. Sometimes we have a Coke or something.
I would say he's quite expressive. He's less expressive as Stan Lee is, but he's got clearly a wry sense of humor. He's I can see how you can grow on you if you get to know him better. It's very much a sort of he's far better one-to-one, you could say, with someone he already knows.
Magazine, something like hold up and say, yes, I'm a respectable professional in the magazine community. And I walked, came in one day and a memo was waiting on
Yeah, more self-deprecation with him.
walked in. Threw the book down.
There's a bit of silliness to him. There is a bit with a wryness, but also the silliness. It's almost Gene Wilder-esque.
You were explaining something around the room saying, following. And I'm sitting there and then I'm getting up.
All right. I'm going to say EII, but I haven't seen anything to really go against EII. I think EI has become more likely over time. I'm going to say EI. I'm going to call it for now. So thank you very much, Isaac. Let's move on to Christopher Marlowe. So Christopher Marlowe, a bit more historical. I like how Claudia suggests Renaissance figures for me. Yes, a playwright and a poet. So it was an English playwright, poet, translator of the Elizabethan era. One of the most famous of the Elizabethan playwrights. Based upon the many imitations of his play Tamerlane, modern scholars consider him to have been the foremost dramatist in London in the years just before his mysterious early death. Some scholars also believe that he greatly influenced William Shakespeare, who was baptized the same year as Marlowe and later succeeded him as the preeminent Elizabethan playwright. Marlowe was the first to achieve critical reputation for his use of blank verse, which became the standard for the era. His plays are distinguished by their overreaching protagonists. Yes, there's Dr. Faustus is one which I quite remember. Yes, a tragic history of Dr. Faustus. That was a good one. Interesting thing about Faustus, he acquires all this power and does so little with it. I think that's a very interesting theme. First, choose critical reputation for his blank verse. His plays are by overreaching protagonists. Themes found within Marlowe's literary works have been noted as humanistic with realistic emotions, which some scholars find difficult to reconcile with Marlowe's anti-intellectualism and his catering to the prurient tastes of his Elizabethan audiences for generous displays of extreme physical violence, cruelty, and bloodshed. He made conjectures of nature and reason for his death, including a vicious barroom fight, blasphemous libel, church homosexual intrigue, betrayal by another playwright, and espionage on the highest level, the Privy Council of Elizabeth I. Doesn't know about his adult life. All available evidence, other than what can be deduced from literary works, is found in legal records and other official documents. Writers of fiction, non-fiction, have speculated about his professional activities, private life, and character. So he's been described as a spy, a brawler, and a heretic, as a magician, duelist, tobacco user, counterfeiter, and rakehill. What is a rakehill? A rake, yes. Yeah. It seems absurd to dismiss all these Elizabethan rumors and accusations as the Marlowe myth. Much been written in his adult life, including speculations involved with royal sanction, espionage, vocal declaration of atheism, homosexuality, government spy. Interesting. He is reputed to be an atheist, which held the dangerous implication of being an enemy of God by association with the state. With the rise of public fears concerning the school of Night or school of atheism in the 19th century, accusations of atheism were closely associated with disloyalty to the Protestant monarchy of England. Some consider it as atheism, as with his supposed Catholicism, may have been no more than a sham to further his work as a government spy. Temporary evidence comes from Marlowe's accuser in Flushing. Men had a Interesting. He's any other shall by good non witness be approved to be his opinions of common species, let his mind doth not only hold them himself, but almost in every company he cometh. So he meant to atheism beginning to be not to be afeared of bugbears and hobgoblins, and utterly scorning both God and his ministers, as I Richard Baines will justify and approve, both by mine oath and testimony of many honest men, and almost all men with whom he hath conversed any time will testify the same. And I think all men in which he ought to endeavour that the mouth of so gentlemen may be stopped. He hath quoted a number of contrarieties out of the scripture, which he hath given to some great men who in convenient time shall be named. Anything shall be called in question, the witness shall be produced. Interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of theories. He's an admired artist. Shakespeare was much influenced by Marlowe in his work. Marlowean themes of Antony Cleopatra, Merchant of Venice, Richard II, and Macbeth. Christopher performed a speech about the Trojan War, has an echo of Marlowe's Dido, Queen of Carthage. Right. First one was Dido and Tamerlane. Jew of Malta. Anti-authoritarianism found throughout Marlowe's work. Dr. Faustus. He's carried off by demons at the end. So let's look at these key themes for Marlowe. Pursuit of power, illicit ambition, and the tragic consequences of overstepping human limitations. Key themes include the dangerous allure of occult knowledge, religious skepticism, and the tension between love and obsession, and the dramatic downfall of individuals challenging societal and moral orders. Faust is definitely driven by a desire for unlimited power, achieved through knowledge, magic, or political conquest. Tamerlane highlights the relentless pursuit of political power. Also, desire to surpass human limitations, particularly through forbidden knowledge or scientific investigation, which Faustus definitely represents. Challenges the traditional view of Christianity. This one's sin, redemption, and blasphemy. Which also critiques religious hypocrisy, identity and desire. It's tension between personal desires and societal expectations, revenge, and conflict. And the overachiever, a common archetype is plays as a tragic hero whose excessive ambition leads to their downfall, bringing a sense of ultimate solitude. So, I'm inclined to think he's either a beta or gamma, not an alpha or delta. But what else can we see? He instantly participated in that of both literature and language, using his Bachelor of the Arts in 1584. His orders his degree with no delay. He went to an English seminary in Reims, which caused the authorities to hesitate in awarding his master's degree. Such a recommendation from the highest officer since drawn much speculation, leading to the rumour that he may have been operating as a secret agent on behalf of Sir Francis Walsingham. Much of his personal life has remained shrouded in mystery. However, he seemed to have a reputation amongst his contemporaries as a spy heretic and someone not shy from a fight. Tragical, complex protagonists who are not only heroes but were more nuanced and deliberately flawed. Tamerlane, great part in 2 parts. So the matters feels the dynamic world and use of oriental character will begin to dominate Elizabethan London years to come. Centered on the real life 14th century war, Timur, who conquered much of. Tamerlane, by the way, is one of the. Next to the communists, he was the most brutal murderer of people. Tamerlane. Hunter was a Scythian shepherd who rose to prominence to claim the crown of Persia. Is shown as a conqueror in both sections of the play. Conveying his heroic character is destined for power through spectacular verses, left his rival playwrights both impressed and envious. Only intended to be a single play, the second part concentrating on his demise because of the immense popularity of the first section of the story. His brief 6-year career as a playwright showed a talent early on for creating complex protagonists. He was also deliberately flawed. Fausto makes a pact with the devil in exchange for unlimited knowledge and pleasures. The theme was controversial for the time. The interaction with the devil had not been dealt with by other playwrights, but Marlowe once again charted a new territory of his choice of a character and topic. He seemed to push the boundaries of literary devices, thematic choices, and artistic expression. I'm inclined to think he's probably another EIE at this. Just that's my immediate sense. Turned to the chosen theme of historical characters, apart from exotic origins. He wrote the play Dido, Queen of Carthage. This idea of selecting a character that's quite out there, but one that is with themes of power and hubris, and then sort of inevitable tragic decline as well. All sort of fits in with an EIE. Short play based on the classical figure of Dido, inspired by historical texts, particularly Virgil's Aeneid. His final play, one which made a significant impact, was the famous tragedy of the rich Jew of Malta. Set against the historical backdrop of imperial rivalry between Spain and the Ottoman Empire was the plot of the rich Jewish merchant called Barabbas who loses his wealth and seeks his revenge on the Christian community of Malta. The play contains numerous themes of greed, religious conflict, revenge, and prejudice. Many argue the play has obvious parallels to Shakespeare's later creation, Merchant of Venice, reflecting the impact of Marlowe's work in the short time he was alive. I was able to break new ground with his writing, challenging literary standards of the day, as well as notably challenging his audiences. The complexity of his characters and their storylines. He had much of the drama which played out on stage later reflected his own life. Rumors about his spying background, coupled with his atheism and suspected homosexuality, was a notorious character. Controversial lifestyle caught up with him in the context of religious upheaval. Several bills were posted which threatened Protestant refugees who had come over from the continent. These were in rhyming iambic pentameter and signed Tamburlaine, referencing Marlowe. Occasionally led to search of Marlowe's home, which he happened to share with fellow playwright Thomas Kidd, who found himself subsequently arrested. In their home, a 3-page document was found with heretical material, which, after a degree of torture, Kidd admitted belonged to Marlowe. A warrant was then put out for his arrest. Such a crime would merit the death penalty, being burned at the stake. It said Marlowe to present himself to the authorities, so he was able to avoid prison after giving instructions to report data to an officer of the court. The avoidance of death penalty did little to prolong his life, as only 10 days later he was dead. He was killed in mysterious circumstances. Whilst much speculation surrounded his death, the official coroner's report was discovered by a scholar called Leslie Hodson. Graham Marlowe, who had spent the entire day at a house at Deptford, the company of 3 other men, all of whom were in the employ of the Walsingham family. The witnesses who were questioned testified that they had seen one of the men in attendance called Fraser, who was a servant to Thomas Walsingham, engage in a fight with Marlowe over the bill. Saw Marlowe snatch Fraser's dagger and wound him, before Fraser wrestled it from him and fatally stabbed Marlowe above the eye. The conclusion was self-defense, and Fraser found himself pardoned. Marlowe was then buried in an unmarked grave in Deptford. bringing an illustrious career to an abrupt and untimely end. Even today, speculation continues to surround his death. News warfare is raging from Queen Elizabeth giving orders to have him killed, even more dramatic fear that he faked his own death and began operating under the pseudonym of William Shakespeare. However far-fetched these speculations are, they reflect the impact and intrigue surrounding Marlowe's plays and the life more generally. A short time with a public figure made a massive impact in the world of Elizabethan theatre, altering the standards of the day and entertaining audiences with fresh new characters and ideas, serving to inspire the bard himself. Christopher Marlowe's life and career was dramatic, exciting, and influential, leaving a great impression on the world of English literature. It probably has to be EIE. I'm not sure what else he could be. Um, Maybe some letters by him. I mean, it wasn't fiction. No direct personal letters written by Marlowe are known to survive. Let's look at key themes. Let's go through the different plays and see what the key themes were then. Marks a turning away from the clumsy language and loose plotting of the early Tudor dramatists, and a new interest in fresh and vivid language, memorable action, and intellectual complexity. Generally considered the best of that group of writers. Serves in creating a stock of themes and especially in demonstrating the potential of blank verse and drama, so acknowledged. The point is, he was also so groundbreaking here. Highlights for drama, grandiloquent imagery, hyperbolic expression, and strong characters consumed by overwhelming passions. Those called comments of the day are negative. Story of a child being killed acts a discharge of firearm doing performance. Goodness, the next year, Robert Greene, the cause of an attack on Marlowe, condemned the atheistic Tamburlaine in the epistle to Pyramus the blacksmith. As playgoers and playwrights responded with enthusiasm and be demonstrated by proliferation of Asian tyrants' aspiring minds. Themes plays often linked to Renaissance humanism, which idealized the potential of human beings. Tamburlaine's aspiration to immense power raises profound religious questions as he arrogates for himself a role as a scourge of God, an epithet originally applied to Attila the Hun. Some readers have linked this stance with the fact that Marlowe was accused of atheism, and others have been more concerned with the direct successor to the traditional medieval morality plays, that whether or not he was an atheist, he had inherited religious elements of content and allegorical method representation. Right. Compare that to say, let's look at the Jew of Malta. Hmm. Hmm. Which is skepticism. Despite its focus on Judaism, the play expresses skepticism of religious morality in general. Fernese, the Christian governor of Malta, first penalized the island's Jews by seizing half of their assets to pay tribute to the Turkish Sultan, and picks on Barabbas in particular when he objects by seizing those assets. Secondly, Fernese allows Admiral Del Bosco to persuade him to break his alliance with the Turks and ally with Spain. Before the end of the play, Fernese enthusiastically agrees with Barabbas' plan to entrap and assassinate the Turks, then betrays Barabbas by triggering the trapdoor which sends him to his death. Similarly, Ithamore, the Muslim slave bought by Barabbas, betrays his master, the Belamira, the courtesan, and Pilia-Borza, the thief, and blackmails him despite Barabbas having made him his heir. Thus, Christians, Jews, and Muslims are all seen to act contrary to the principles of their faiths. See the prologue of Machiavel hints. Yep. So pointing out hypocrisies is another aspect of him. They do seem quite different. It doesn't look like Dual Malta and Merchant of Venice are that similar. the end of the play, he attempts to murder his erstwhile Turkish allies by tricking them into falling through a trap door. In the end, he falls into his own fiery pit and dies a violent death. The method by which Barris dies has several specific biblical overtones. It's also, Faustus, a similar sort of death happens, sort of dragged down to hell. Those are the specifications for punishment used by the Old Testament. It matches the crime. In Barabbas' case, it deals with murder, fraud, and betrayal by a Jew. Secondarily, there is a frequent use of Judaism of a device where perpetrators ensnared his own trap. Examples includes Haman in the story of Purim. See what others? Dr. Faustus. Well, I know Dr. Faustus. I studied it. In blank verse and prose in 13 scenes or 20 scenes. Synopsis. Yeah, I know synopsis. Calvinist, anti-Calvinist controversy. Theological implications of Dr. Faustus have been subject to considerable debate. There's complicated points of contention whether the play supports or challenges the Calvinist doctrine of absolute predestination, which predominated in lectures and writings of many English scholars in the latter half of the 16th century. The time Faustus was performed, the doctrine was on the rise in England under the direction of Puritan theologians. As it remained a source of vigorous and at times heated debate. These Cambridge intellectuals had quite nearly reached its zenith by the time Marlowe was a student there. Themes and motifs. Ravished by magic, Faustus turns to dark arts when law, logic, science, and theology fail to satisfy him. Charles Nicholas places the play firmly in the Elizabethan period where the problem of magic was a matter of debate, and when Renaissance occultism aimed at furthering of science. Nicol, who connects Faustus as a studious artisan to the hands-on experience created by Paracelsus. Season 4, a follower of the latter, a magician as technologist. Spoiling for the famous line was that the face that launched 1,000 ships and burnt the topless towers of Ilium, said by Faustus upon seeing a demon impersonating Helen. The line is a paraphrase of a statement from Lucian's Dialogues of the Dead. It is frequent for that context, conveying astonishment at Helen's beauty. From Dr. Faustus, it is said to a devil posing as Helen, in response to the illusion. It may even express disappointment that she is not more beautiful. The German poet and polymath Johann Wolfgang von Goethe envisioned a meeting with Faust and Helen. Right. His fate reflects people seeking redemption, salvation from a religious perspective. Several occasions of listening to the warning from the scholars about the consequences of his actions, he continues down his path of sin. It is not until his deal with Mephistopheles to fulfill that he begs for God's mercy and a chance to repent. In the end, his prayers go unanswered, is ultimately damned, highlighting the irreversible consequences of his choices. Yep. I mean, you got a bit of introverted intuition, you got extroverted sensation, you got plenty of extroverted ethics, which means the key thing, the creation of drama. There's even some expectation of introverted logic in people, but not necessarily set out overtly. So I think EIE makes the most sense, and also the sort of controversial lifestyle, but also the secretive lifestyle. To some degree, the early death, you could say, but I don't think that's entirely type relevant. But necessarily a more not necessarily a very cautious individual, compared to say an IEI. Yeah, I think EIE for him. I can't see what else there would be. If anyone wants me to type anyone else, please send a super chat. Just send a super chat of $20 or more, and say who you want me to type. I will then type them. I'll probably wait until no, I'll wait about 10 minutes. I see watch a little documentary about Kit Marlowe just to see if there's anything else. Mini bio.
Welcome to the Hismore Channel. Join me here in the lovely churchyard of St Nicholas in Deptford, and we're here to see a memorial. And that memorial is to one of the foremost playwrights of the 16th century, and that's Christopher Marlowe.
Oh, Hakeem Phoenix, that's a good one.
Now,
Let's watch this and then I'll move on to Hakeem Phoenix. Thank you, Pearl Valkyrie.
welcome to London. Marlowe was born in the same year as Shakespeare, 1564, and was one of the foremost dramatists of the Elizabethan
baptized the same year.
He was a son of John Marlowe, a Canterbury shoemaker, was baptized on the 26th of February, 1564. He attended the King's School in the city and then went on to study at Corpus College, Cambridge, where he gained a Bachelor's of Art in 1584. In 1587, he gained his Master's. It is also around this time it is thought he started working for Queen Elizabeth's government, but in what capacity we are still unsure. There is speculation that Marlowe was a spy. His first play was Dido, Queen of Carthage, but his first major success was Tamburlaine the Great in around 1590. The Jew of Malta, Edward II, and the Massacre of Paris, about the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, soon followed, along with Dr. Faustus. Plays were key works for the Admiral's Men, run by Edward Allen, who performed many of the leading roles in the plays. Allen is associated with the Rose Theatre, and it was here that Marlowe's works premiered. It is known that Marlowe lived in Shoreditch, and while here, he completed some of his major works, as well as translations, poetry. Sadly, little is known about his private life, and there's still much speculation about that. He was known to be something of a carouser. He's known to have frequented many a tavern in London. It's also suggested he was homosexual. A warrant was issued for his arrest in 1593 for heresy, after pamphlets were found at Thomas Kidd's lodgings, who then implicated Marlowe. Marlowe appeared before the Privy Council on the 20th of May, 1593, but they weren't sitting, so he was told to appear every day until further notice. But 10 days later, on the 30th of May, 1593, Marlowe was dead. We will probably never know the full circumstances of his death. It is often cited he died as a result of a drunken brawl. Some say it was a fight over a homosexual love affair. Recent theories suggest he faked his own death to avoid the heresy charges and possible execution. Some even say he adopted the pseudonym of William Shakespeare. He was buried in an unmarked grave in the churchyard of St. Nicholas's Church. He has a memorial window dedicated to him in Poets' Corner of Westminster Abbey that was a gift from the Marlowe Society. It was unveiled in 2002.
He's
the window
29 years old.
A question mark next to the generally accepted date of his death.
29.
1593.
Goodness.
So that was the story of Christopher Marlowe. Great playwright, but was he also a spy? Who knows? Did he write Shakespeare? Who knows? But his last resting place is in this churchyard somewhere. Thank you very much for watching today. We do hope you enjoy these videos. I think it's school kicking out time, so that's what the noise is about.
Cut as the branch that might have grown full straight.
When videos are uploaded, there's a notification bell just
How appropriate.
Want to see what we do outside of these videos, then please go to history.co.uk, see about Walk to London, or have a look in the description below and see
Right,
about
lovely.
Last Line Films.
Okay, so let's move on now to Hakeem Phoenix. Hakeem Phoenix. American actor. Widely described, one of the preeminent actors of his generation, known for his roles as dark, unconventional, and eccentric characters in independent film, received various accolades, including an Academy Award, a British Academy Film Awards, and Screen Actors Guild Award, yada yada yada. You have a television series. His brother's called River, Hakeem River. They've got all sorts of straight River, Rain, Liberty, Summer. sort of hippie Jewish parents giving these ridiculous names. So outside acting, he's an animal rights activist, a vegan. He regularly supports charitable causes, produces several documentaries on global meat consumption and its impact on the environment. Very Commodus in the historical drama Gladiator. Yes. It was Set of Signs. Was Johnny Cash and Walk the Line. Saw him in Joker. That was fascinating acting. His first acting experience, instantaneous joy, the most enjoyable thing. For some kids, it's the first time they crack a ball or score a goal. For me, it was this. I was 8 years old. I remember the first scene on the TV set so vividly, and I knew that I loved it. The physical sensation, how powerful it was. It's a feeling I've been chasing ever since. So Phoenix became an avid break dancer. He dropped out of high school and he was sent a dead frog in the mail to dissect for his biology studies. So he was so upset by that he just dropped out. Well, he was a vegan, so. And Florida setting in Gainesville. Tilts him to view this adventure film Space Camp. The young boy goes to Kennedy Space Center to learn about the NASA space program. He goes amateur astronaut training. Turn about mythology and conspiracy. Goodness. So as a child actor, Phoenix felt he was not getting any appealing offers, decided to take a break from acting and met with his father learning Spanish. When he returned to the States, his brother suggested he change his name back to Hakeem and encouraged him to start acting again. So why do you call himself Phoenix? His mother was a social activist. Well, that makes sense. Seems we've seen some quotes. Reception acting star, as first. At the beginning of his career, he is often referred to as the second most famous Phoenix. His name associated most closely with the death of his brother, River Phoenix. The media would often compare the two, describing Hakeem as sweetly unsettling and endlessly vulnerable compared to his brother's pure all-American blonde boyishness. As his brother died, he gained a reputation for his distrust of the media, and speculated it was derived from how River's death was covered by the press. Often asked about the day River died, still is to this date. He's described these interviews as insincere and has felt that they impeded on the mourning process. He's engaging, engaged, mischievous, honest in person. Wry, shy, and could be any more friendlier. Phoenix just doesn't like to talk about himself. With his intensity and darkness on screen, James Gray worked with Phoenix, and for feature says he's very different off screen. He's actually very tender and sweet and sensitive. It's almost as if he channels intensity into the characters, like the work is an outlet for his darker side. I'm wondering already if IAI might be possible for him. Particularly his ability to heavily commit to each role he plays, and his intense preparations deeply immerse himself in the characters, often blurring lines between fiction and reality. Some critics called him a true chameleon. He commands the screen and breaks your heart. He makes us feel it all vicariously. Phoenix was more than a heartthrob, that there was something more tortured, more vulnerable, infinitely more interesting at play beneath the surface. He was ruled out of teen idol roles because his hard gaze and scarred lip. Films immediately seemed to recognize that Phoenix was more than a heartthrob, but something more, yeah. I think that's the word he was retired from acting, become a rapper. I'm still here. The character of public appearances, giving many the impression that he was genuinely pursuing a new career. Media outlets board believed he was having a mental breakdown to his infamous appearance on the late show with David Letterman. I haven't seen that. There's no real methodology to the roles he chooses, but it said that he's drawn to complex characters. It speculates that his affinity for dark roles derives from something more ineffable, possibly prenatal, saying that I think there is a combination of nature and nurture, and some is my upbringing. Even so, he remains reluctant to draw a line between his unusual childhood, his private tragedy, talent for inhabiting the morose, damaged, violent, and otherwise anxiety-riddled characters. He's described him as one of the most incorruptible people ever known, and the least superficial. That also would fit II. I've spoken of his acting, saying that he admires his limitless ability to surprise in the best ways and inspire to move in a direction we haven't thought of originally, better than what do you have in mind. Does not apply method acting, but said that working with Phoenix is like working with this beautiful wild animal to give him the space to be free. So the performance can roam freely, raw, uncontrived, and truly natural. If he smells the design of the scene, you lose his free spirit. If the script is weak, he will expose its flaws, is fiercely intelligent, or is completely instinctual. It's immense sensitivity that can be both his curse and his gift, but for me, this is what it means to be human. Prefers independent film over major film studios, citing that the quality of acting suffers. Doesn't care about genre or budget size, just whether there is a filmmaker who has a unique vision, has a voice and ability to make the film. Identified one of the most active celebrities in the animal rights movement, a vegan since the age of 3. That's where he refused. Basically, just dropped out of university and they sent him the University of School and they sent him a frog to dissect. Not wearing any clothes made out of animal skin. He requests that all his leather costumes and films are made from synthetic materials. And writes one of the most important pillars in his life that climate change is imminent if we don't adopt a plant-based lifestyle. Okay, so there's very clear ideology there for him. Very clear ideology. It's vocal to the suffering of fish, which is a neglected cause in the sphere of animal rights. Fish, says Phoenix, are the last thing besides insects that people don't really consider. Also, a fish brutally flung against the side of the boat, simulated drowning in the 41-second petter spot, designed to dramatize how fish suffer in the final moments of their lives. Goodness gracious me. Views and lifestyle. Re-established as an actor in the 1990s. Moved back to Los Angeles, known for his disdain of celebrity culture, rarely granting interviews, being reticent about discussing his private life. 2018, he described himself as a secular Jew who did not affiliate with any organized religion. One of his core values is the idea of forgiveness. He's also claimed that his mother believes in Jesus, though his parents were not religious. While portraying Jesus in the 2018 movie Mary Magdalene, he expressed that the role changed his perspective on the nature of forgiveness. He once checked himself into a rehab to be treated for alcoholism. 12 years later, revealed that he did not need an intervention. I really just thought of myself as a hedonist. I was an actor in LA. I want to have a good time, but I wasn't engaging with the world or myself in the way I wanted to. Drove down a winding canyon road. He veered off the road and flipped his car. A crash reportedly caused by brake failure. Shaken and confused, he heard someone tapping his window, telling him to just relax, unable to see the man. He replied, "I'm fine, I'm relaxed." I replied, "No, you're not." The man then stopped Phoenix from lighting a cigarette while gasoline was leaking into the car cabin. To realize that the man was German filmmaker Werner Herzog. Herzog helped Phoenix out of the wreckage, breaking the back window of the car, bicycle, and ambulance. Makes sense to be sort of inept in this sort of emergency situation. He labeled the Academy Awards bullshit. He later gave an interview apologizing for his comments and acknowledging that the awards provided an important platform for many deserving filmmakers. He led on the topic on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Comfortable receiving accolades for his work, considering the filmmaking process a collaborative one. Finds animal agriculture absurd and barbaric. He explained his reason behind veganism. To me, it just seems obvious. I don't want to cause pain to another living, empathetic creature. Take its babies away from it. I don't want to force it to be indoors and fatten up to be slaughtered. So for me, it's my life. It's always been my life. It's really one of the most important things to me. He's a black belt in karate. Right. Yeah, I want to see this fish thing. I want to see the Letterman appearance. Goodness gracious. To kill by preventing air from reaching the lungs or gills.
Water. Humans drown. Just as fish suffocate on land. It's slow and painful and frightening. And we do it to more than 1 trillion fish every year. Put yourself in their place. Try to relate.
Yep. I think it's quite clear extroverted ethics is a major part of him. And I think quite a pronounced introverted logic. It's not the sort of beta extrovert where it's the pursuit of the accolades. It's more about it's more cause relevant here. The cause is very important, and very going deep into his work is also very important. Joaquin Phoenix. Let's see, Letterman. His infamous appearance.
It's been 3 since the last time you were on the show, and I will just say right off the top here, you look different than I remember. You've got a nice beard going, and
Oh, yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
how is that, the beard?
Minimal way.
Well, is it comfortable? Is it itchy? Is it? Are you pleased with it?
I'm okay with it, but now you're making me feel weird about it.
I'm sorry, I'm making you feel weird about it.
Is there something wrong?
I can't be the first one to make you feel weird about it.
No, I guess not.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Is it you do a lot of this?
That's just a nervous tick, I think.
Oh, just a nervous tick. You know, I saw this.
See, beards were a lot more unusual back then. Now, so many people have beards.
What's in it? What's her name? Beautiful, lovely. Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, your grandmother, Vanessa Shaw.
Very nice movie, and you don't see movies like this much anymore. And I was so gratified to see it. And you were terrific in the film. I really enjoyed your work.
Thank you.
I think that intensity mixed with a certain amount of shyness and sensitivity, it really fits II best, I think. It's a matter of elusiveness and privateness as well.
What can you tell us about your days with the Unabomber? It's just a little joke. I heard that that you were leaving acting, and I said to myself, "That's too bad," because you're great, and you know, not just me, the 2-time Academy Award nomination. Walk the Line, you were tremendous in Walk the Line.
A tragic tale of Joaquin Phoenix. I'll watch that later.
Time off, and I think you're taking a little time off tonight. I'm hopeful that you will reconsider and come back to acting because you're just, you know, nobody really better than you are.
Thank you. Never say never, right? I don't know.
You don't know what.
I don't know if I don't know what'll happen.
But you're not going to act anymore?
No.
So this is all method acting for him, it wasn't.
I don't know. I mean,
so you have given some thought.
Yeah, it's not really an easy thing to explain. It's something that's been part of my life for a long time, you know, and so it's weird to like come out and stage a bunch of fun people and just talk about it, you know. So yeah, Are you all right? What happened to your thumb?
To my thumb, which is a little cuticle mishap.
That's infected. Damn it!
It's just a grooming mishap.
No, that's infected.
No, that's not. That'll be
That's,
all right.
I think that's.
Joaquin, what will you do now?
Well, I've been working on the music.
Yeah, music. Well, when I saw you in Walk the Line, I said, this guy is tremendous. He's singing, and it sounded great. So is that the kind of music you're interested in?
No, I do more hip hop music.
Hip hop music.
That's a joke. What do you have them on?
I'm sorry.
What do you gas them up with? Is this nitrous kicking it on it?
Right, let's see an interview is actually being sincere, because I know he's acting here.
And I liked your movie.
Well, thank you very much.
The Happy Clinking. Loved it. It was awesome. Economic, environmental impact in these troubled times.
Excuse me?
Kidding.
It's just so much fun. You know what? I think our interviews will last about 2 seconds.
I know. So this movie it's such a heartwarmer. I cried 3 times during the course of it.
I don't believe you've ever cried in your life.
Well, it's a cruel and hard world being me, but I like to lie. Completely true. So you brought tears to my eyes. And tell me about this character coming into yourself. Obviously, since it's not a physical manifestation of yourself, how did you find him sort of embodying you as you voiced him? If you did at all.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, it's not quite like that. I mean, it's a very different experience from what I'm accustomed to. I mean, when I've done other films, that's really the idea, is to try and get into the character, maintain that character. Of course, with this process, you're working over, for me, it was 3 years. So, what was difficult is once we established the character, which I did with a lot of help from the directors, Bob and Aaron, who obviously know the ins and outs of all these characters. They've been on this film for 6 years. And so for me, what was difficult was maintaining the character, because I would do a session, leave, I'd go and do another film, go to England, make a film, come back, and they said, we're going for another session. So it always took me like 45 minutes to get back into the swing of things.
And he went through quite an evolution himself, which was lovely to see. And I liked him because he was so real. Is that partly what made you think, yeah, this is a guy who I'd like to be?
As to why I decided to play the part. No, I mean, to be honest, initially I've just been interested in doing animation because I'm curious about the process. I'm curious about the acting process, and working just specifically with one's voice. And that was really it's really what interested me most in doing this.
What did you learn about yourself and your voice?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, came out cold. These things happen. And besides enjoying themselves when people see this film, what do you hope that people glean from it when they walk out of the cinema? Thank you.
We're done.
He did not seem happy to have that interview at all. Commodus and Gladiator, that's the one.
Yeah, I dig this film a lot, and you know what? I've got to tell you, when you go into a movie about gladiators and you haven't seen one in 40 years, and and it's who's in it and who makes it, Ridley Scott, the expectations are high. And I just love to see a film that delivers that stuff.
Yeah,
and that's not always true.
No, it's not true. But I think this film does. I mean, it certainly exceeded my expectations, and I worked on it, but you're never quite sure how it's going to turn out. But I think the finished product is brilliant.
Because you want the things that a film about gladiators, titled Gladiator, to deliver. What it kind of promises to be.
And it does. I mean, it kind of, it's a film that seems to have everything. Not only does it have these kind of brilliant, elaborate action sequences and wonderful sets, and I think a realistic representation of Rome during that period, but also a very humanistic story at the core of it. And it's so rare to find films that have so much to offer.
Because I grew up watching those films. I look good for 67, don't I?
Yeah, really good.
Thanks. No, I'm not. But you know, I grew up, you know, Spartacus and all that kind of stuff. But the Roman emperors in those old movies, Caesars in those old movies, were so swarmy. You know, there's a history of that whole kind of, oh man, you don't want to get too close, but you're probably going to die.
Well, I honestly, I never saw any of those films. I'm ashamed to admit. Although I think it kind of worked out well for me because I kind of went in with kind of a fresh idea of what it was. And I wasn't influenced by any other films. But yeah, Rome certainly had its fair share of mad emperors. But you can imagine that sense of power would taint and distort one's mind.
It'd make you nuts.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it would make you nuts. Also, you play an emperor who is so young.
He's 19 years old.
Really?
19 when he succeeded his father. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't just that alone and that much power. I mean, that's more than we give pro athletes.
Yeah, exactly. It's far too much, especially with someone of Commodus's disposition. He seems very insecure and has always felt that he never really lived up to his father's expectations. And so suddenly to be thrust into this position with that much power, I think it's overwhelming. He doesn't really know what to do with it, but try and kind of please his own demented desires.
You know, in the making of movies and in the casting of movies, for me in the watching of films, some things are obvious and some things are better because they're not. When I found out you were casting this film, I kept thinking, oh yeah, that would work. When you were casting that film, were you surprised?
Well, it was a bit of a process. I mean, I met with Ridley and read for him and tested. So I wasn't sure, but
he does seem in interviews. There's this very strong sense of him feeling that this is utterly pointless. What point does this serve having this interview?
Take a hat on the character.
Which strikes me as more of a determined thing rather than an exacting thing.
I hope that in Ridley's eyes, it would
especially with introvert intuition manually.
You know, they're filmmakers who are real street level, filmmakers who are big and epic, some who are visionary. Where does he fall in?
I think he combines all of those. That's why he.
You know, first of all, I'm going to say I saw this movie. I'm going to say it's like a week and a half ago. They got me a special screening, and I went with a couple of the producers on our show, and we were completely blown away by this film. It's a tall order, I would say, playing Johnny Cash, and you just become him, and you forget that you're an actor playing Johnny Cash, which is the biggest hurdle in a biopic. So congratulations. It's really an incredible job. First of all, I know, you know, you've come on the show a couple times over the years, and I know that one of the hardest things, I know that you love acting, you love inhabiting the role, you love the craft. Then you got to go out and talk about the movie, which can probably get a little boring for you because people ask you the same questions over and over again. Is there anything you're doing this time around to sort of keep yourself entertained as you go through this process? My question exactly.
Yeah. I have
That was for our Finnish audience, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I have. I just create special languages that no one understands. I don't even understand it.
Right.
You do it.
You make up like kind of words and stuff just to do every now and then. You've actually been doing this on this press tour. Is that right?
Yeah, a little bit. Mew mew.
See, it's like you're doing it for yourself, right?
Well, me and two other people.
Right.
No, I have a friend, Michael, and we call him Mew Mew. And he actually has a song that we made up just for him.
Just for him.
Mew Mew Gaga song.
Right.
And
Gaga song.
Gaga.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very important.
Okay.
You did it very well, by the way.
It goes between sort of a standoffish sense of I don't want to be here to very sort of non-intimidating, very sort of.
Very well. The person that
did he know what he was doing? How did this?
Yeah, no, we went through the entire song actually. He knew what he was up. He knows the chorus, the bridge.
Yeah,
right.
I don't think he has quite the edge of an EIE. It's not extroverted sensation that he shows much of. It's more total disinterest when he's in some of these other interviews. This one is more relaxed. I think Colin's quite a good interview.
guy myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever makes you comfortable. It's
Thank
your
you.
show. You know,
Thank
I don't want to
you.
push anything on you.
After the Wendy's thing, I don't know if it's mine anymore. It might be gone now.
Yeah.
Now you had to, not had to. This I think this would be a thrill. Is present at the Country Music Awards, which, I mean, you're playing.
Like, there's no toughness here.
Present at the Country Music
I don't think
Awards.
it is toughness. It's more, I really can't bring myself to be present in this particular interview and interaction, which is what I find with IIs. If they don't think the conversation is relevant in some way, they just space out. But you can't space out if you're in an interview.
I didn't know what to do, and I saw Chris Christopherson.
I think II for him.
He gave me a thumbs up, and I was like, "Well, that's good." I don't know how he knows that it's going to be okay, but somehow
There's something very calming about Chris Christopherson.
No, it's true.
I found that throughout my life, whenever I'm in a moment of crisis, I look around.
Also, he takes the veganism thing really, really seriously.
I've been vegan since I was 3 years old, and at that age, me and my siblings witnessed fish being killed in a really violent and aggressive way, and it was just absolutely obvious that it was something that we didn't want to participate in, we didn't want to support. To me, it seems obvious. I don't want to cause pain to another living, empathetic creature. I don't want to take its babies away from it. I don't want to force it to be indoors and fattened up just to be slaughtered. It is absurd and barbaric, and I don't understand how you could witness that and not be affected by it. But certainly, it's also the effect that it has on our environment is devastating.
Yeah, the environmental cause, pushing that as well. Like, this is the grand thing to resist. Right. Commitment keeps every day. Anything else? Like, he takes it really seriously. Like, the cause is more important to him than setting a particular image. Yeah, this is that kind of way of talking about it is that we're talking about is very beta introvert.
I had that rationalization. Well, it's
can't wear suits made of wool.
There's not
oh no,
abuse, which seems incredibly.
The sheep will die if you don't shear it.
Stop the suffering. Anything you have that is made from animal skins can be made without.
Yep. Yep. It's a big focus on cause and ideology there. It looks very lame. It looks very, very lame. But if you really believe in this cause and almost religiously, yeah, it makes total sense. But I don't think EIEs tend to be more inclined to set some kind of image. They may, if they do have a faith like that, they'll keep that in a way which doesn't tarnish the image they're trying to create. Whereas Hakeem Phoenix, image serves the cause, not the other way around. Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure of II for him. I'm not sure what else he could actually be. I don't think EIE. I mean, keep in mind Vacuum Phoenix, his mother is a social activist. He was raised in that way of thinking from a very young age. It's not like he was a vegan since he was 3. So it's very weird to us. It's very normal to him. Yeah, I know. It's when you start your conversation about veganism by going to the fish rather than the more easy to represent cases like chicks being male chicks being killed, or fur fur trade. Those are the easier things you can talk about if you want to be vegan. But if when you start with fish, the extroverted ethics is not the key concern here. Right. Okay, yes, I think I now I'll pot around for a few more minutes to see if anyone wants me to type a fourth person. But otherwise we can end for today. But yeah, if anyone wants to send a super chat for me to type a fourth person, you have now 7 minutes to do so before we wrap up. Interback Joker, that's an interesting one. But it's a very compelling role.
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
With Joker, obviously you're playing this quite villainous character, and often actors say that there's always something that they kind of latch onto to find empathy within a character. So for you with Joker, what was the kind of key to finding that with him?
Well, when I read through the script, in a couple of scenes, I recognized the traits of PTSD, which is fight or flight or freeze, is sometimes the forgotten third part of it. And so
Fight or flight or freeze.
So one part of the story that I believed was that he experienced childhood trauma. So going into that research and seeing the effect that it has on somebody and how they perceive the world.
Right.
Basically, he's in this highly reactive state in which he perceives.
Thanks, DJ Granville.
Threat everywhere. And so I think that was really kind of like a foundational piece for me, and kind of understanding the way that he sees the world and what he experiences. Because there's a lot, also, when I first read the script, where yeah, it's a villain. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't like about him, and I didn't know if I could make a movie like that. I wouldn't know what to do. I had to find. I had to find something, and while his motivations aren't always clear, I think once I kind of unlocked that portion of it, a lot of it made sense to me.
It's interesting that you mentioned PTSD, because that's something quite a few of your characters in the past have had. Like you were never really.
Yeah, you never. That's where I really learned. That's where I learned about it and studied it, and that's why I recognized those traits when I read the script. It's like, oh, that's PTSD.
Yeah, it's something that people haven't really spoken about. I guess is that like your character Arthur is so childlike in this.
Very serious. He talks about, this is the mental health condition I've seen in this.
A man in some ways. Did you see that at all?
There's an intellectual seriousness to him. This almost slightly overdone. I think is the introverted logic.
On the subway.
Where, mobilizing.
This woman is being harassed by these three drunk men, and not only does Arthur not intervene, he doesn't intervene because he doesn't really understand the dynamic at play. In fact, he's looking at the guys wondering, is that how you talk to women? And so he's so isolated, and has never had that experience. And so, yeah, when I read that, I said, this is clearly, it's like a child.
Yeah. One of the things.
Right. Let's move on to Shia LaBeouf. Sure, look at the John Bernthal interview. Good idea. Let's first say, who is Shia LaBeouf? Shia LaBeouf. He's 39 years old. He's an American actor and filmmaker. Played Louis Stevens in the Disney Channel series Even Stevens. He's also in Holes, if I recall. Disturbing Surfs Up. Mother was Jewish. Got a lot of Jewish today, actually. He's the only child of visual artist, jewelry designer, and dancer Shayna Said. He embraced the Catholic faith in 2022. Interesting. Parents as hippies. Another one with parents as hippies. Actually similar to Joaquin Phoenix there. So I was tough as nails and different breed of man, and his upbringing as similar to a hippie lifestyle, seeing his parents were pretty weird people. Loved me and loved them. His parents eventually divorced me, owing to financial problems. It was described as a good childhood, growing up in poor in Echo Park with his mother, selling fabrics and brooches. But his uncle was going to adopt him at one stage, as his parents could not afford to have him anymore, and they have too much pride to go on welfare of food stamps. But dealing with his parents' divorce, he would perform for his family, mimicking his father. So during his childhood, his father was on drugs and was placed in drug rehabilitation for heroin addiction, while his mother was trying to hold down the fort during a period when his father was in rehab. Addictions when he was about the age of 10. He overheard his mother being raped by a stranger in a home. Goodness gracious me. He lived with his father from the age of 12, when he was filming Even Stevens, his father serving as on-set guardian. During his time, he accompanied his father to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. He also suspected he was subject to abuse by his father. Was pointing the gun at his son during a Vietnam War flashback. He remains close to and financially supports his father, as if for his mother until her death. Goodness gracious me. What an upbringing. About his childhood, he feels grateful because some of their memories, none of those memories are scars. First time of the Performing Arts magnet. Yeah, as I love Hampton High School. Just comedy before we got into acting properly. Stand up. Because of Megan Fox at Transformers press conference. Premiere of Fury in 2014 when he grew that beard. Controversies. Got quite a few controversies. He was sued by his ex-girlfriend for sexual battery, assault, and infliction of emotional distress. Goodness. He was removed from the awards campaign for Pieces of a Woman. He subsequently took a hiatus from acting began receiving treatment. Interviewed John Bernthal on his Real Ones podcast. Mark V had hurt that woman, adding, I was a pleasure-seeking, selfish, self-centered, dishonest, inconsiderate, fearful human being. Interesting. Right. I think we'll definitely look at that interview with John Bernthal. But I know Shia LaBeouf is especially famous for this.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it! Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it!
Very extroverted sensation message. But it could just be performance, of course. I'm very pretty sure it is performance.
If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up.
Right. John Bernthal. Right. Let's look at this. Oh, wait. That's not the right one. There we go. Let's take a look at this.
I'm so grateful that you're allowing me to just talk. Come on, man. And I love what you did with this thing. I was watching all the,
you know, because I'm fearful too. So I was watching all the interviews that you've done with Bo and Kevin, and
There's a lot of
there's just like
physicality
you found a
with him.
you found a gap. Not a whole lot of places a guy like me can come and talk my truth, you know, or Bo talk his truth and sit down with another cop. I think is phenomenal with you. I'm not just kissing your ass. I think this is really special. I like how small it is also. Anyway, what do you guys say? I know you do your little intros.
You gotta be, you gotta be anything like that. I think the first thing I want to say is from what you said as soon as you got out of that car.
Yeah.
Can you lead me in a prayer?
Yeah, all right,
about this,
definitely.
about this conversation and what we're trying to achieve?
First off, I'm prepared to go every which way.
Let's go.
Yeah, I think that it's my duty now. Like when I think about what my life has become and what it is now, like what my purpose is now, you know, I need to be useful. And when I look at this Me Too environment, there's not a whole lot of dudes that are taking accountability. I fucked up bad, like crash and burn type shit. Hurt a lot of people. And I'm fully aware of that. And I'm going to owe for the rest of my life. And I also don't have that feeling about the woman who's accused me all this shit like I did in the beginning. When it first landed,
absolute communication. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. It is.
It was I wanted to hit Twitter and be like, look,
absolute
receipts, this, that, but this, but not that, but this, but not that.
It's not matter of fact communication.
All of that shit is unimportant. The reality is that she saved my fucking life, dude. Wow. Yeah. So she's like a
saved his life.
Sage or like a, I don't know. She's a saint for me, because had she not intervened in my life and not created the avenue for me
lots of absolutes,
death, I'd either have a really mediocre existence or I'd be dead in full. And
I'd be mediocre or dead.
I had no
this or that.
My whole purpose, as you know, was just craft. It was just, I'm going to be good at this thing, and that's all that I have. The only thing I care about in life is being a good actor. And that's such a vapid, shallow existence. And three emotions that I toggled between, which was I would feel anxiety, depression, and excitement. And I thought excitement was joy, and I thought lack of depression was serenity,
peace. Yeah.
And I had no spiritual life. I had a very I was bankrupt spiritually. I thought my whole spirituality was this craft. Because other than smoking weed and drinking, the only
he's found spirituality now, but he didn't have it.
You know, that's the only time my perspective would shift and change. And it's the only time
I'm thinking SLE.
So I'm on a spiritual growth path. I'm on an excavation. I'm picking it up, cleaning it up, putting it back. You know, I didn't just hurt that woman. The kind of shame my wife has to walk around with, you know, the pain that came to the people I was working with creatively. Even I built this, like, me and Bo built like something really special downtown, and all them kids, you know, I just failed a lot of people. And so when I say I'm gonna owe, it's not just her. I owe a lot of people.
It's like total, complete signaling of ownership.
Why I felt like celestial mathematics when you hit me up was, it's not a lot of places I can go talk. Period. You know, and I guess old me would have looked at this like, oh, well, this is an opportunity for you to like speak.
I wouldn't mind looking at John Bernthal at some point. That'd be interesting.
Give dudes who fuck up hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What can this achieve? Who can this touch? Victim, perpetrator, someone lost, someone's trying to be found.
Yeah, all that.
On that path, pain is an adhesive, bro. If you've been through it, you can connect to people. Period. End of story. The first thing I just think, like, look, man, I haven't seen you in a long time, bro. And I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
The first thing I just need to ask you, man, is I need to ask you about your child.
Yeah.
I need to ask you about your baby, bro.
Yeah.
Yo, man, tell me about your baby.
I mean, she is the most dynamic spark of life and most magical.
Lots
it's
of
a game changer, dog. You know,
again, absolute,
like talk about
slightly exaggerated language.
So them like as though these loves are like anywhere near what you experience when you have a kid. But this was all tied in too. Like it came at a time when, you know, me and my girl been in love for a long time, but I didn't really know it. You know, I didn't really know what love was till all this shit hit the fan and she was still around. I thought she was in love with me because of what I could offer. I didn't know that when I had shit, jack off, fuck all, nothing to offer, she would still love me. So I didn't really know what love was, right? That's one. And out of this like newfound discovery of real love in my life, this kid, you know, and it I'm not gonna pretend like I done figured it all out. It's such a mystery, you know.
What scares you?
What scares you is like, and if nobody tells you about the first 3 weeks, you know, the first 3 weeks, man, I remember changing the diaper.
Yeah.
You know, I've
Yes,
been
it does.
hanging with monks for
He's
9
this is an
months. I
intense
changed a lot of
person. He
shit.
carries that
I've
intensity.
been in rehab for
There's
3 months.
extrovert sensation is
outside.
definitely valued and stubborn.
So I thought I had like things dialed in, like I could press the pause button. But when you're changing a diaper,
And I don't think introversion is actually strong for him. I think something he's had to discover over time, which
and
makes
then you
sense for a
change it
suggestive
again.
function rather than a creative function.
Again, and it's 3 a.m. You ain't slept for 4 days, and you're on the third. It's the third iteration of shit, and you're sitting there at the table, and you change it
And
one
also
more time. You say to
the
yourself,
absolute clarity which he creates, it's absolutely that's the introverted logic serving the extroverted sensation.
how am I going to get through this? And you put the fourth diaper on, and she
There's some ambiguity when it comes to an EIE, which you don't find with him. There's no ambiguity with him. There's no subtlety whatsoever with him.
A bunch of stuff, but there's some kind of incredible genius in my child. But she's testing me, and she's forcing me. She's forcing me to give up on me.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is what I
way
need.
more important.
Yeah, I mean,
way bigger.
obviously way more important, but it also feels like some kind of weird reset button. For sure.
I mean,
like I know
he's
that
been
I'm
asked
never gonna
questions
get to
about
be who I
people.
was in front of this woman, you know, and I know
TI
that
is not
my wife the way that I treat
which questions you're asked, and it's how you answer.
It's like the ultimate probation officer. I've never looked down on having a
There's
probation
no qualification of statements. It's very absolutist. That is very much introverted logic, without extroverted logic being the value.
I need guidance, and my kid is
He needs
serving as kind of
guidance.
ultimate like
He needs guidance.
North Star. Yeah, and for sure North Star, but even more than that, she's first of all, my kid is so fucking joyful.
This is introverted intuition as a suggestive function.
Been around doctors, and maybe all
And
doctors
he's
say this.
gained that awareness now. He didn't have that awareness when he was younger. He's 39. He was 36 in this. He's come to that realization.
She's a part of a new purpose that I didn't have. You know, I was living for myself, and when you're holding a baby, like baby don't care about none of your shit. You know,
like, what do you think being a good dad is? What are you gonna bring to the table?
I'm honest. Yep. I'm loyal. I'm willing. I'm open, curious, super curious, and I'm learning how to be a man of principles.
Give voice to what you're scared of and what you're worried about being a dad, and what you think you know you need to focus on, and what you're worried about with your relationship with her for the future.
I'm not worried about much anymore. Like I don't live in fear. I don't have a bunch of worry like that.
What do you need to work on?
Yeah, there's a lot I need to work on. First off, just in terms of having a daughter and knowing that your daughter is one day going to search your name in a search engine and see that, you know, you are a deplorable, disgusting piece of shit. And that shit hits, you know? And so I have from now until she's literate to create a relationship with her where she knows me more than this idea of who I am in the public, you know?
When that hits, like you say, because it's funny, man. I just went through something like that with my kids, because my kids can fucking read now. You know what I mean? And what's there, man? Do you see an opportunity in that?
Yeah.
What is it?
I'm picture for myself a Christmas with a bunch of people I done helped.
There you go.
That's what I envision for myself. It's not, you know, I used to judge my worth by the films and stuff, and like I think about my Christmases during that
judge's
whole
worth by films.
So fucking solitary and lonely, or it'd be like this new girl and that. I mean, it was always like some like very intangible, vapid, no intrinsic value. Nobody that could like. I imagine that there's dudes I'm working with now that I got 597 days of this program I'm in, and I got monks at my house. You know, I look around sometimes in my house, even now, and I think, what? Like, how? You know, how did this happen? And I think it's the relationships. I think my daughter will be able to, when it does come time for her to be able to assess who her father is, she'll see a man who failed, was a sinner, was honest about it,
That's it.
took accountability for it, and then made course corrections, changed, and then gave his life to something bigger than himself, and found solace in a program of principles, service, love. You know, that's where I'm aiming at. So I think it'll be a Christmas one day where she just wakes up and goes, "Damn, Dad's got a lot of friends. Who are these people?" And my mommy will say, like, you know, Dad had a hand to play in like these people finding the same thing he found. That's what I'm hoping for. You know,
Not if, but when she falls, because everybody does, man.
sure.
You're going to be able to talk about it with her, and you're going to be able to be there with her.
The reason I've always connected to you is because, you know, you have depth and weight because you done fell on your fucking face, you know, and then got back up and kept it moving. And, you know, this is people who haven't gone through that, they don't have depth and weight to the message that they have to share. They can tell you all about what to do and how you're supposed to do it. But very few people have the life experience. And this child is a big part of that. You know, there's a lot of miracles that have taken place in my life just in this short period of time that takes me out of this belief phase into like, oh, I can touch it. Yeah, this feels very real. So, and I played with faith, you know.
Preference of things to be tangible.
Faith, but it was all like the purpose was formative.
What was it's about intentionality. Right. To be good in the movie.
Right.
Not to save yourself or save somebody else.
And when I fucked up in the past, it's like, you know, you get a call from Brad Pitt. What fuck up? You know, there wasn't no calls this time. My mother didn't talk to me this time. You know, nobody. All my friends became acquaintances.
The antithesis of being a friend is walking away. I am not going to walk away. Like, I am always going to love you. I am always going to support you. That being said, the things that, you know, this person said, like, I can't fuck with that. And like what you said, you were right, man. Like, I fucking hurt people in my life, you know. Like, I know what that is. I know what it's like to be in that valley. I know what it's like to be left behind. I don't know what it's like, you know, to put my hands on a woman, or for a woman to say I put my hands on her. And that's something you know, like, but no matter what the case is, my job as your friend is to, in whatever way you allow me to, or you allow me to be a part of that process, is to make sure, one, you never do it again. Make sure, two, that you're in a healthy process, and number three, that I'm a support system.
Is finding himself isolated at that time.
I guess my question with that is, man, is like, where
it shows the introverted ethics was very much missing from his life.
For people who support you and love you, like, what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I got amends to make. I got a long list of people that I need to make amends to. And so what I want to say to those people is I get it. You know, it doesn't seem, you know, when it first hit, it was like, you know, I wanted to air it out and talk about specifics. And like,
it's tending to get this very public contrition. It's very beta. It's like
doing that. I heard many
when
and many other
King Henry II
I was living my life
brought about the death of a bishop, Thomas Becket. He underwent penance in public. It's a similar sort of thing here. It's public penance.
On a survival instinct. I wasn't operating as a friend. I didn't actually, all my loves and friendships were transactional. You know, I fucked with you because we worked together and I experienced great pleasure in that working situation. You know, when I look back at the friendships people who dipped or don't talk to me, these were also part of the same kind of transactional relationships. I didn't actually understand what love was. You know, I didn't know what friendship was.
Didn't know what friendship was.
Do a pity party thing. I was raised very specifically in my father would tell me stuff like, you know, your life is your life, son. You know, if you want to have a good life, you got to work real hard. You got to get into a good school. You got to get a good job. That'll lead to a good relationship. You have a kid and you put that kid in a good school, and, you know, it's all up to you. And so that kind of, it forced me into a position in my life where I was God. I was the person who was making shit happen, and
he was the person who's making shit happen.
Like I was in a laboratory measuring shit and like quite controlling. I mean, you know how I am on set too. You know, the way I was operating on set was the actor is the poet. You know, like you're in a solitary, you're on your own.
Yes,
like,
Mike Tyson's puppets, similar, very similar.
This is what I was living in. This is the shit I came up with. You know, the actors that I looked up to, the art that I was inspired by, they moved like the actor is the poet. I was moving like in my life like I was that way. Right. That does something to the way you operate in the world. Some people are attracted to it because that confidence is attractive, and it feels comforting to be around somebody who you think knows
And this
something.
that public penance
It's
is
attractive.
very beta.
It's my own
Not
insecurity to be
gamma.
around a person who is fully acquainted and acclimated to their craft or their mission in life. When somebody's really confident in something, it's nice to be around that energy because it feels like guidance. It feels like you can lean on it.
Yeah, they got to figure it out.
They got to figure it out, right? So I get why I empathize with why my way of doing shit was attractive then. And I remember who you were on that set.
Just give a clear idea of what Shia LaBeouf was like as well. I just wanted to show a video of him. It was shortly after the first Trump election. The "He will not divide us." The triggering of Shia. Here we go, and you can see it's. I think he gets arrested for this. Just getting physical immediately. It just makes him look like a bully. And the guy's trolling him, obviously. It's a ridiculous display. And sort of squaring up with everyone and trying to intimidate them. So very clear shows of extrovert sensation here, but not played well strategically in terms of his image. It kind of made him a laughing stock. Goodness. Yep. So that's what he was like.
How deeply insecure, and the way that you were moving on that show specifically, and then the yearnings for David to hit you with certain compliments and shit. Like, you needed validation from him, from us, from Kevin, more so from Kevin, and like the military dudes, you constantly needed them to co-sign all your shit all the time. And I empathize with that, but that's not who I was. I was not that way in life. The way that I felt about craft and life in general was, I don't give a fuck what you think. I don't care what you think about me. I had come from an environment with very little cheerleading going on. And so I created a sort of survival instinct where I would cut people out, and minimize opinions. And the way that I would do that is I had to believe that my opinion was greater than everybody else's opinion around me. I remember talking shit to Spielberg. I mean, there was no director who ever directed me, and I used to be proud of that. This is what I mean. Like the things that I looked up to and romanticized was I came up on a certain kind of music, a certain kind of culture, boss shit. The guys I looked up to were not asking you what you thought. I thought there was something sexy and punk rock about like these islands, these men who are islands.
Untouchable.
Yeah.
Is that possible? Is it possible to be that?
It's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's just not real. It's fiction. It's not a real.
Well, it's a blanket, right? I mean, it's armor.
I listen to Mickey Rourke interviews and I think, damn, bro, it's a sad boy. You scared man. You're so fucking scared, And there's a lot of this tough guy armor shit, and I get it, and I love Mickey Rourke. He gives me hope. When you see a dude go for 12 years no craft and then come out and do the wrestler, a guy like me who's in my position looks up to shit like that. It gives me hope. It makes me feel inspired. Like, all right, if I'm patient for 12 years, maybe one day guys like me in my position need stories like that. And simultaneously I listen to his interviews and I go, there's no evolution here. You're still shitting on Tom Cruise, bro. Like, why?
Right.
And it's insecurity, right? You know, and I was that way. I was so competitive. My acting wasn't collaborative. It was competitive. It was a sport. And my life was this way. And this is what created the insecurity and the jealousy that put hands on this woman. The man that was involved in that relationship was constantly comparing himself to other people. And I was a dishonest person in that I was wearing this mask. You know, I've gotten cold sores my whole life. Got them from my mother. I get 2 cold sores a year when I'm stressed out or I'm sick. I never told any of my sexual partners.
And now he's found a more transcendent purpose.
That's something.
So that the pettiness of ultra competitiveness
Talk to these people who you don't
has been revealed
like,
to him.
You can't clean up. You know, you can't make amends for permanent damage like that. You know, and so my daughter now has become this opportunity for me, you know, and every woman in my purview has become an opportunity for me to be like a stand-up dude. I used to open doors for women. I used to, you know, I was a good dude that way, but it was almost performative. It was almost like, I'll do this good thing so you can think I'm a good dude. But like in my own private life, when the doors were closed, I never told any woman I had cold sores, you know? And so that's
the extroverted ethics.
Deplorable behavior, you know? When a woman would like me, it felt like so fucking foreign that I didn't want to fuck it up. And I always thought that a woman being into me was tied to this business. So like I think about why the business and the industry was
you see that defensiveness over ethics. It's very, very raw. No, very vulnerable introverted ethics. Mobilizing functional extroverted ethics, I think, makes a lot of sense. And he got caught up in that in a way which was kind of backfired for him, was always insufferable. In a very sort of beta ST way rather than an alpha NT way.
And it really has almost very little to do with the craft itself and the spiritual nature of what the craft can be. For a great swath of time, it had to do with, this is how I define myself. This is where I build my ego so that I can go in and pursue these things that will, these feelings that will absolve me from the very real feeling that is continual loneliness and the feeling of being not enough and the feeling of constantly comparing yourself to other people. And what that does in a relationship is it makes you controlling and fearful and manipulative. To not tell somebody you get cold sores twice a year is a heinous manipulation, you know? But I never came up with a dude who was like, hey, this is how you navigate that situation. Nobody hit me the game like, hey, bro, you know, if you're really in love, you can have open conversations about uncomfortable shit and really get to like another kind of connection you don't even know about.
Or if somebody was trying to tell you weren't in a place to receive it anyways. I mean, maybe somebody's right.
Yeah, I wasn't.
No capacity for interpersonal vulnerability.
Whether it's through, you know, drinking or whatever the fuck it was, that you hurt people that are close to you.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me, man. And I'm just wondering.
I mean, people who put their whole shit on the line to like bring me back from the fire. You know, Alma Harrell is a great example of a person who, she took a gamble on me. You know, I was in rehab when we started having a conversation. I got arrested in Georgia for fighting with a cop, wound up in rehab, and didn't hear a damn thing about God, spirituality, personal growth, accountability. My whole, as soon as I got to rehab, was let me get back to this hustle. So I started writing a script in rehab. That's how fucking mad I was. I wasn't listening to no therapy. I had been therapized my whole life that it felt like, you want me to focus on the problem? Well, how am I gonna hack this focusing on the problem thing? And how am I gonna find my way back to this fucking hustle so I can get back to my ego? Because really all I cared about was my ego. I didn't give a fuck about getting well. You know, it was all about get well for you. Get well for the camera. Get well. And so
that's,
you know,
the beta energizer
kind of toxic
situation there.
Milieu of
get well for the image, for the cred, and being trapped in the maintenance of his cred. And so his personal life and his own authenticity was gone. Totally gone.
And she was in on it because she thought that it was, I mean, I don't know what her motivations were, but it felt like she was doing kind of what you're doing here. when the conversation first started with Alma, it was like, man, we got to get to the root of what the fuck is going on here. You know, something wrong with you. You know, let's get well.
It was out of love. It was out of love. Like y'all fucked with each other. You made stuff together. I love you. What can we do?
It wasn't let's build a product. It wasn't fetishizing product when first. She didn't. It wasn't like I was in an environment where she's like,
Academy Award.
Yeah, let me go hit you up for a script idea. It wasn't that. She hit me up like, hey, I'm in the same. I'm living a principled life also. Maybe you should get involved in this thing. And immediately I was on a, as a matter of fact, here's a fucking 60-page monologue I wrote about my dad while I was doing this fourth step, and right away it was almost like I manipulated her into directing this movie, and then that put me in a situation where I was even sicker, because then self-will is run riot in full, because now I'm at Sundance. We just done one Sundance, and I'm like thinking that I can that I'm the ultimate manipulative master. And I was telling other people
super confident
after seeing that movie, asking me about how to help, and I would tell them, well, you just got to paint with your pain, and all this fucking nonsense.
Taking the extroverted logic totally for granted.
No.
The fact that your spiritual life at that point was bankrupt, and the fact that that came out of a transactional, less than
basically unhealthy SLE, who's
is it still possible?
Found a way to start to balance himself.
Inspired people or help people. It still could have.
Oh, I know it has.
Fair enough. Okay.
And I don't think, and I don't want to get too spiritual, too much God talk in here, because I know that it landed like on deaf ears when I wasn't ready. But God uses people in many ways, and I've interacted with people, and Alma has interacted with people who that movie has had a hand in helping them find their way back to the route, and that's very fulfilling. So I can't deny that craft and art is a huge instigator in people. When you think about Catholicism in full, beauty is a huge part of the religion.
That's right.
Art has a huge hand in evangelizing people and bringing them to God. And
Absolutely. But there's also been some real toxicity and some morally bankrupt things that use that art in order to draw people in for their own personal gain and for weak parts of those people,
which is where I was.
And I think, man, it's when I think about you,
had this. He has to be SLE. I'm not sure what else it could be.
To galvanize and ignite people, you can make people feel enormously strong and powerful and joyous. I've also seen you humiliate people.
Yeah,
I've seen you.
I'm actually less sure about John Bernthal's type.
In an environment.
I'm less sure. I don't know if he's SLE right now.
They're cousins, man.
I'd like to look at him separately.
Without the other, and it is a constant. I think it is a constant work. It is a constant mission. If you're going to try to walk the path where you're trying to live for
kind of Joe Rogan about him.
People up, because that doesn't go away. That shit will never ever go away. It's constant work.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was tripping out on is you saying how you hurt people close to you. That's also I we talked about it. I definitely understand what it's like to hurt people. I've hurt people. I've hurt people in ways I'm disgusted with myself for what I've done.
Yeah.
I haven't hurt people that are close to me. I can't imagine what that's like, and I want to know. First, I guess I want to know, how does that feel? Do you know that you're doing that while you're doing it?
Listen to his answer, then I should probably wrap up.
Like, what does that feel like to know you've done that, or to know you're doing that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two perspectives on it. There's where I am now and who I was then.
Yeah.
And I've had to do a lot of inventory on what was motivating this perspective.
Yep.
I come from and this isn't a boohoo shit either, but I know abandonment. I know deuces. And I would test relationships, and as a way of finding a barometer. I'd also I would hurt people just out of straight selfishness. No, there's no intellectual facet to it. Just the fact that, the fact that I cheated on every woman I'd ever been with.
Very weak introverted ethics.
That's
just no introverted ethics.
Who took me from nothing and put me on, I eviscerated in public life, even on set.
No introverted ethics.
Weakness in another person on the other side of a scene, I would lean in. I wouldn't try to uplift nobody. I would try to lean in. And it was this constant trying to define myself in the world. It has to do with
constantly to define myself in the world.
All of this comes from fear.
Extroverted ethics, extroverted sensation.
I didn't understand masculinity in full.
Yeah.
what I know masculinity to be now is
It's the
stability.
negativism of extroversion, extroverted ethics. It's Peter Energizer stuff.
Because if you're just a dude, like you know how infinitesimally fucking small we don't even know how deep Lake Michigan is. You know, like what are you really running? You're running nothing. And so this idea that if you're like you're bossing your life, you're always going to be
Fascinating
in
interview.
a
This
tremendous amount of fear.
fascinating.
And
Watch the whole thing. I need to finish
Yeah,
though.
you have to deny anybody else's God. You have to deny God in full, and you have to, you fall into this like Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens hole where you're trying to intellectualize everything and rationalize everything.
You're fragile, dude. We're all fragile. We're all,
yeah, but then you get caught up with like I hung out with like philosophers and shit. I would backstop all my shit with like these philosophies and like fucking words. Play these word spells on people, and was using like performance art to like create this running word spells. Just a bunch of fucking nonsense. Really, at the end of the day, that all had to do with with the same thing that hurt people. It was all about my propulsion system was fucked. My motivations behind the way I was living my life was wrong. I had to get a new propulsion system. I wasn't looking at life like how can I be useful to other people. I wasn't looking to be of service to nobody, even including a director. I listen to Ethan Hawke sometimes, do interviews about how he looks at the craft, and he's always talking about like my job is just to be in service of the director, and that's like foreign to me. I remember being in service to a director and getting fucked over. I remember doing movies with certain dudes who like led me down a weird path, and looking back at the project thinking like, nah, man, I was right all along. You were wrong, and then I stopped listening to any kind of director, and that innocent dude who came into the industry with all this wild, wide-eyed wonderment, that disappeared pretty quick, and then it became like I got around some dudes who I saw work a very specific way, and I thought the answer to this having to rely on the infallible man that is the director is you just don't listen to the director and you just do your own shit because trust your instincts, buddy, because you're God. I remember calling my manager and saying like, what do you mean? I'm God. This is really where I was at because I thought my craft was God. I thought love, art, and God all meant the same thing to me.
And to somebody who's because I understand you're looking at it from two different perspectives. It's where you're at now and where
right. Stop now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I say we typed 3 people today. Chris Claremont, which I think is EII. Christopher Marlowe, most likely EIE. There's not too much information available. So we typed 4 people, not 3 people. Hakeem Phoenix, IEI. And finally, Shia LaBeouf, SLE. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And also thank you everyone for making your super chats. Mm.